Necromancer Summoner. I can see potential in Snatch the Goddess. Chapter 1. Underworld. The Bone Sea. The gray-black sky, the endless skeletons, and the hazy skeleton in the distance. The dead and cold world was made up of pure bones, without any life. In the sky there were two huge suns in the shape of skulls, emitting pale white light, illuminating the world. Li Xiao lay on a heptagonal stone altar, his body stiff and motionless, for who knows how long. He opened his eyes again and saw two huge skull-shaped suns in the sky. He always felt that they were staring at him. Li Xiao sighed. Is there any other time traveler who is so miserable? He was sleeping soundly in his bachelor apartment. When he woke up, he saw two huge skulls in the sky staring at him coldly. At that moment he was so shocked that he almost jumped up. But a series of blue progress bars appeared in my mind. Data loading, 1%. His body seemed to be frozen by some invisible force. He couldn't move at all. Even his eyeballs couldn't move. He was like a vegetable. It seems that he has traveled through time, and he seems to have brought with him a system that is standard for travelers. However, the signal of this system does not seem to be very good. Li Xiao watched the progress bar move forward bit by bit at a terrifyingly slow speed. It was not until he fell asleep unknowingly and woke up that the progress bar went from 1% to 2%. Li Xiao didn't know how he spent the rest of the time. He finally understood how painful it was for a vegetative person. Although he was conscious, his body couldn't move at all. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw two skulls in the sky and nothing else. He couldn't even turn his neck to see the surrounding scenery. It's easy to fall asleep with your eyes closed, which saves a lot of trouble. When the progress bar in my mind reached 5%, I don't know if it was affected by the two skull-shaped suns in the sky, but I started to feel restless even after I fell asleep. Li Xiao began to dream. In the dream, there was endless crimson fog that covered the sky and the earth. I don't know why, but I can vaguely feel that at the end of the fog, there seems to be a magnificent palace or a castle. In the dream, Li Xiao couldn't help but walk towards the castle, but the road under his feet seemed endless. No matter how long he walked, he could not reach the area where the castle was. But you know what? The tiredness of walking in the dream and the stiffness of being unable to move after waking up seemed to neutralize each other and did not drive Li Xiao crazy. If you feel tired, just open your eyes and stare at the skull in the sky. If you feel bored, just fall asleep and continue walking in your dream. I don't know what's ahead, but I'm just sitting there doing nothing. As I walked, Li Xiao lost his sense of urgency. The progress bar in his mind is still rising, this is his only hope. Finally, I don't know how long it took, maybe a few days, maybe a year, maybe 10 years. When Li Xiao had studied every bone pattern on the two skulls in the sky clearly, the progress bar in his mind finally reached 100%. At that moment, there was no pleasant ding sound, nor any pleasant female tour guide. The progress bar in my consciousness slowly extended and then turned into a screen of light, like the character attribute charts in video games. A series of words emerged silently. Data loading completed. Searching the surrounding environment. The environment search function is being adapted. Adaptation completed. Energy is missing. Searching for available energy. Search completed. After these two strings of text ended, Li Xiao felt as if his brain suddenly exploded, and then the endless red mist in the dream suddenly surged from the depths of his sea of consciousness and sank into the blue light curtain. The text on the blue screen was originally white, which looked quite harmonious. From this moment on, the text began to turn dark red, which matched the blue background and gave it a weird feeling. Special energy components found. Energy type, crimson origin. Warning, the system is contaminated, infinite resistance function activated. Resistance failed. Starting system disengagement procedure, disengagement failed. It was found that the basic logic of the system has been tampered with, and the countermeasure function was activated. The countermeasure failed. System attribute function has been tampered with. Resistance failed. This system doesn't work. Li Xiao was speechless as he looked at the series of resistance failed prompts that appeared on the panel. What kind of a broken system is this? Not only is the signal bad, but it can't even fight against the red mist. Anyway, what on earth is that mist? It appeared in his dream, but it's real. After a series of failure prompts, the subtitles that appeared on the panel finally became relatively normal. System transformation completed. Reading data. Reading completed. Real name, Li Xiao, to be confirmed. Soul talent 1. Crimson origin. You are a collection of ideas filled with madness, tyranny, hatred, blood, and destruction. You are the desire for bloodthirsty primitive savagery, the anger towards the order and oppression represented by modern civilization, and the sum of all negative, primitive, barbaric, and uncivilized concepts. You are against civilization, love, dedication, kindness, and evolution. It wants to destroy all order, smash all beauty, and return everything to chaos and disorder. You are not some supreme god of destruction, you are the ultimate ideal that all gods of destruction pursue. You cannot be truly annihilated or destroyed, because annihilation and destruction are the most basic concepts that constitute you. As long as this concept exists, you will always exist. You have no reason or consciousness, because the concept of order represented by reason and consciousness is what you want to resist and destroy. You shouldn't exist. The system cannot parse. Oh shit. Looking at the series of words that appeared in front of him, Li Xiao felt his scalp tingling. Are you kidding? What do you mean I have no reason or consciousness? I am not crazy yet. The system did not respond to Li Xiao's complaints at all. Perhaps the system did not have this function. The text on the panel continued to appear. Soul Talent 2, Crimson Sacrifice. Consumes lifespan, can drive the power of the crimson origin, and corrode and tamper with reality or concepts. Remaining lifespan, 62 years. Talent and expertise 1, Crimson Vision. The powerful crimson origin provides you with a special vision that transcends reality, allowing you to observe the results of some target evolutions. This is the end of the subtitles on the panel. Li Xiao tried to move, but her body seemed frozen and she couldn't move at all. Li Xiao was full of doubts. System, why can't I move? He couldn't help but send a message on the panel. Unable to parse. A line of cold words appeared on the panel. ... This system really doesn't work. I need to move. I can't just lie there forever. Unable to parse. System, you are such a fool. Please don't curse. No, system, you are not stupid. What is wrong with your system? Sister system, I love you. Sorry, this function is not available at the moment. System girl, Li Yan plus Li Shu. You will come back to watch. Next, Li Xiao tried a variety of voice wake-up combinations, but most of the responses on the panel were unable to resolve. Only when there was interaction would there be a more vivid response on the panel, but the IQ did not seem to be very high. It's like, intelligence has just been born. In the end, Li Xiao completely lost his patience and used his mind to activate the Crimson Sacrifice ability on his panel. This ability can consume a portion of lifespan to erode and tamper with reality or concepts. I don't quite understand it, but it should be able to free him from this vegetative state. Deep red mist gradually emerged from Li Xiao's body. This sudden change seemed to have alarmed some kind of existence. The two skull-like suns in the sky suddenly emitted two gray-white beams of light, which crossed the space from the 9 heavens and shone on Li Xiao. The deep red mist seemed to be enraged, and it suddenly boiled up, following the two gray-white beams of light, and rushed straight into the sky. Li Xiao's figure shook, and in the intersection of gray and crimson light, it seemed that he had broken some invisible confinement and finally regained control of his body. But then, the information that appeared on the panel made his scalp tingle and his hair stand on end. The suppression of the rules of heaven and earth is found, and the Crimson Sacrifice ability is automatically activated. Consume 1 year of life to carry out adaptive transformation. Remaining life, 61 years. Consume 1 year of life to carry out adaptive transformation. Remaining life, 60 years. Consume 1 year of life to carry out adaptive transformation. Remaining life, 59 years. Holy crap, stop now. Li Xiao was so shocked that his scalp was numb and he roared continuously, but the data refreshed on the panel did not change at all. Seeing that his remaining lifespan had been reduced from 62 years to 1, the series of information stopped. A new message is refreshed. The remaining lifespan is less than 1 year, and the adaptive transformation is completed. Receive blessing from the Moon Goddess and obtain career advancement system, Necromancer. Receive the blessing of the Angel of Dark Light and obtain the career advancement system, Nether Warrior. The Crimson Origin drives the ability to tamper with reality, and the advanced system is integrated and transformed. The integration is successful. Obtain the only professional advancement system, Taboo Master Apprentice. Obtain the Extraordinary Origin, Forbidden Magic. Your magic has the ability to tamper with reality and concepts. Obtained Professional Expertise 1, Taboo Brand. Use taboo magic to transform into a brand, implant it into the target's soul, and transform the target into a taboo slave. Obtain professional expertise 2. Forbidden summoning. Use magic power to construct a summoning array, and you can summon subordinates to fight for you. Obtain professional expertise 3. Forbidden demonic body. Your physique can accommodate power of any attribute and will not be affected by the rules of heaven and earth. After a series of prompt sounds ended, a brand new panel appeared in my mind. Real name: Li Xiao. Confirmed. Occupation: Taboo Master Apprentice. Lifespan: 1 year less. Strength: 2. Spirit: 7. Constitution: 3. Forbidden magic: 700. Soul talent: Crimson origin, Crimson sacrifice. Talent and expertise: Crimson vision. Professional expertise: Forbidden brand, Forbidden summoning, Forbidden demonic body. Transformation progress: Dark moon goddess 0.61%. Dark light angel 0.61%. I can finally move. Li Xiao jumped up from the ground and stretched his body desperately. He didn't know how long he had been lying on the ground, but the feeling of lying on the ground was really terrible. This body was still the same body as before the time travel, but this time, both the body and the soul were gone, because he was still wearing the coral fleece pajamas from his memory. But as his body stretched, the coral fleece pajamas were torn with a sizzle sound by the force generated by his arms, and a huge crack appeared from his left shoulder to his right abdomen. I've been lying in bed for so long that my pajamas seem to have decayed. His movements slowed down, adapting to the new feeling after a long sleep. This body had obviously become much stronger than before, and seemed to have endless power. Moreover, there seemed to be a small lake in the area of his brain. As his thoughts turned, streams of air radiated out from between his eyebrows and flowed freely in the air. As soon as the thought came to his mind, magic power rushed out of his body, turned into a dark golden light in midair, and then disappeared. The boundless world of skeletons was filled with white bones everywhere, but Li Xiao did not feel too much about it. After all, as soon as you open your eyes you can see 2 skull-shaped suns in the sky. When lying down, the remaining light from the corner of your eyes can also give you a general idea of the surrounding environment. This should be a world where the undead live. Having said that, it is not easy to travel to such a world and still keep the original body. If it were not for the specialty of forbidden demon body, I am afraid I would not be able to survive in this world. And, when Li Xiao thought of this, he felt a pain in his balls. This is what he got in exchange for his life. He spent a whole 61 years of his life in exchange for a body that can move freely in the underworld without being affected. And the insufficiency of remaining life after 1 year is really speechless. 11 months are not enough, and 1 day is not enough. How long can he live? I don't know. What I need to do now is to familiarize myself with the power of this world as quickly as possible, and then practice and evolve according to my own career system. It is well known that most of the evolutionary systems can extend my lifespan. The Forbidden Lord's career advancement system is a fusion of the 2 professions of Necromancer and Nether Warrior, and then transformed by his own Crimson origin. Of the 3 current professional specialties, it seems that only one forbidden summoning can be used. Of course I have to give it a try first. When you travel to the world of the dead, you have to become a necromancer and summon your undead minions to fight. Li Xiao exhaled lightly and activated the forbidden summoning ability. The surging magic power rushed out from the center of his eyebrows, forming a heptagonal summoning circle around him, emitting a dark golden light. Li Xiao's expression suddenly became a little strange. The summoning array was covered with complicated and intricate secret patterns, but the secret patterns seemed a little unserious. No matter how you looked at it, it looked like 7 graceful women lying there. Like some kind of sketch. Concentrating his mind, Li Xiao carefully sensed the consumption of his magic power. Activating the summoning formation consumed a full 100 points of magic power. Afterwards, every time 10 points of magic power were consumed, a figure would emerge from the formation. It was the lowest level skeleton soldier. Well, totally expected. After consuming 300 points of magic power, it seemed to reach a critical point, and the summoning array constructed by magic power disappeared. On the ground, 20 skeleton soldiers appeared. Looking over, a panel appeared on each skeleton soldier. Forbidden skeleton soldier, level 1, strength, 5. Constitution, 5. Spirit, 5. Magic, 50. Forbidden guard, forbidden skeleton soldiers will faithfully execute any orders you give them, have unlimited physical strength, and never get tired. If they die in battle, they can be resurrected by consuming a certain amount of magic power. Battle instinct. Forbidden skeleton soldiers have battle instincts, and can continuously optimize their combat skills and abilities during battles, with a chance of comprehending unique combat skills. Taboo skeleton soldier. You look down on me now. The 20 skeleton soldiers were all exactly the same, with identical panel data, as if they had been produced on a unified assembly line in a factory. There is a small red heptagonal logo behind the panel of each skeleton soldier. Out of curiosity, Li Xiao clicked on the logo with his mind, and a new 3D image appeared next to the skeleton soldier, filled with a faint purple light. Activate the Crimson Vision and observe the target's evolution results. Taboo Female Guardian, Level 4, Strength. Physical Fitness. Spirit. Ability. Explanation. Taboo female guards are the most loyal guards of the Taboo Master. When necessary, they will give everything they have, including their lives, to meet any request of the Taboo Master. Depending on the way they are trained, the abilities of each Taboo female guard will be different. Consuming life to perform Crimson Sacrifice can speed up the evolution of skeleton soldiers. Ah, this. Li Xiao opened his mouth wide. In his Crimson Vision, the figure that appeared next to the skeleton soldier was an extremely beautiful girl with dazzling red hair and pink eyes. Her face was extremely delicate, with a sense of purity and transcendence, like a fairy from heaven. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her figure was perfect. She had nothing in her hands and no equipment on her. Well, no equipment. This is really. Li Xiao wiped the corner of his mouth and had to close the page of Crimson Vision. It was so exciting, so exciting. This high-definition, uncensored 3D image was definitely much better than the AI beauty works he had seen before he traveled through time. At this moment, he truly felt that the abilities he had gained through hard work were quite good. If these 20 skeleton soldiers could evolve to the 4th stage and become like that, the 61 years of life I spent on them would be worth it. Taboo guard. Who said I was ugly just now? Hostile target detected, please be careful. Just when Li Xiao was about to take a look at the abilities of these forbidden skeleton soldiers, a message refreshed on the panel, which made him stunned. Suddenly, a faint gray mist filled the surroundings, followed by a series of click sounds. In the endless sea of skeletons on the ground around, many bones were pulled by the light gray mist and began to automatically form skeleton soldiers of various sizes and shapes. In the dark eye sockets, a grayish-white soul fire burned. Li Xiao could clearly sense the cold and undisguised malice emanating from those skeleton soldiers. In fact, when Li Xiao obtained the Forbidden Lord Occupation Advancement System, the red mist in his body swallowed up some of the light released by the two skulls and obtained some basic information about this world. It's a very subtle feeling, as if a lot more basic knowledge suddenly appears in my mind. This is the underworld, and the power system is divided very precisely. There are cannon fodders without ranks, militias of the 1st rank, soldiers of the 2nd rank, generals of the 3rd rank, lords of the 4th rank, kings of the 5th rank, and gods of the 6th rank. Before the 3rd stage, which is the general stage, many low-level undead creatures actually have no intelligence, only instincts, that is to fight, devour, and absorb the soul power contained in the opponent. The more soul power they absorbed, the more they would evolve and gain stronger power. When they finally reached the 3rd stage, they would develop complete intelligence and become true, dead creatures, in the underworld. However, there are very few undead creatures that can gain wisdom at the 2nd level. They are usually wizard-like creatures, such as necromancers, banshees, death warlocks, and the like. At this moment, as the gray mist floated up, hundreds of skeleton soldiers evolved from the endless sea of bones on the ground around them, surrounding Li Xiao and the 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers. These are not naturally evolved skeleton soldiers, but slaves controlled by some undead creatures. This is a hunt. Li Xiao was being targeted by an undead creature, whose true form was hiding nearby, secretly driving over 100 skeleton soldiers to attack. Dark Witch Banshee. That's right, kill Li Xiao and I will be the protagonist. Li Xiao looked towards the surrounding skeleton soldiers, and suddenly panels appeared in front of him, and he felt relieved. The strength of these hostile skeleton soldiers is very weak. Their strength, physique, and spirit are basically around 1 to 2 points. They are all the lowest level skeleton cannon fodder. In fact, you can tell from the appearance. The bones that make up the bodies of these hostile skeleton soldiers are all grayish-white, and most of them are damaged, as if they have been weathered for a long time, and it feels like they can be completely shattered with a single hit. The forbidden skeleton soldiers summoned by Li Xiao are generally slender, but their bones are snow-white and complete, and they even emit a bright light. It is obvious at a glance that they contain powerful power. At this moment, sensing the enemy's presence, 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers quickly rushed over and surrounded Li Xiao to protect him. Woo! A low whimpering sound was heard in the air, like the howling of some living creature. The gray mist swirled around the bodies of the hostile skeleton soldiers, pulling pieces of bone into the air and transforming into rough weapons such as bone knives, bone swords, and bone spears. There was even a skeleton soldier holding a bone longbow in his hand. There was a condensed gray light at both ends of the bow that turned into a bowstring, and then a pale white bone arrow appeared. The other party also understands necromancy spells. Li Xiao felt a little annoyed. His profession as Forbidden Lord sounded awesome, but because he was not yet at the advanced level, he did not have a single offensive skill and relied entirely on summoned creatures. Now, we can only rely on the abilities of the 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers. The forbidden summoning skill can only be used once every 24 hours. Call. A sound like an exhalation was heard in the air, and then hundreds of cannon fodder skeleton soldiers around suddenly rushed forward waving simple bone weapons. Kill them. Li Xiao gave orders to the 15 forbidden skeleton soldiers, while the other 5 guarded around him to test the combat effectiveness of these summons. In fact, it has been proven that the forbidden skeleton soldiers, whose strength, physique, and spirit attributes all reach 5 points, are indeed very powerful. A forbidden skeleton soldier rushed towards the 3 hostile skeleton soldiers, put his slender hands together to form a knife, and slashed the enemy's chest with incredible speed. The bone palm directly smashed the crude ancient knife in the opponent's hand, broke its ribs, and broke its spine with a bang. Flash sale. The unranked cannon fodder skeleton soldiers had no power to resist them at all. It seemed that even if it was 15 to 100, all the skeleton soldiers could be eliminated in a few minutes at most. Li Xiao was very satisfied. It seemed that his 61 years of life were not wasted. After the enemy skeleton soldiers died, wisps of gray air entered the forbidden skeleton soldiers' bodies. The first skeleton soldier pulled his palm into the void, and a white bone knife appeared. Taboo skeletons can evolve in battle and learn the combat skills of their opponents. They have 5 points of spirit and their own magic points, and can also cast undead spells. The bone knives condensed in their hands are obviously stronger than the bone knives in the hands of those cannon fodder skeleton soldiers. Li Xiao was watching with great joy, as he saw the cannon fodder skeleton soldiers shatter and collapse in the hands of the forbidden skeleton soldiers, and the soul aura on their bodies being absorbed and refined, and his mood gradually relaxed. He even had time to open the Crimson Vision to see what the evolutionary limit of these cannon fodder skeleton soldiers was. The result disappointed him. These cannon fodder skeleton soldiers were really cannon fodder. The attributes reflected in the Crimson Vision after evolution were no different from those before evolution. In other words, they are incapable of evolving and are truly pure cannon fodder. Only the skeleton soldier with a bone bow in his hand can become a second-level skeleton archer after evolution, making him the only one with evolutionary potential. To be honest, after seeing the beautiful 4th-order forbidden female guards of the forbidden skeleton soldiers, Li Xiao had no interest in these second-order skeleton archers. A forbidden skeleton soldier rushed over, took an arrow, and then smashed the opponent's head with a fist. As a light gray airflow was swallowed by her, a white bone bow appeared in her hand. The inferior bone arrow pierced her body without even leaving a scratch on the white bone. The fighting power is really strong. Li Xiao instantly fell in love with this group of forbidden skeleton soldiers, especially when he opened the Crimson Vision page and hung it next to the panel to admire it. It felt really good. 4 minutes later, all the hostile skeleton soldiers were destroyed. The 15 forbidden skeleton soldiers who went into battle were all improved to varying degrees, and even the skeleton soldier holding the bone bow had his spirit points increased by 1 point, reaching 6 points. She performed the best, so Li Xiao ranked her as number 1, then No. 2, number 3, and so on, all the way to No. 20. Just as Li Xiao was about to arrange a few forbidden skeleton soldiers to search the surroundings to see where the hidden attacker was, a loud scream suddenly rang in his ears. Li Xiao only felt a loud bang in his head, and vaguely seemed to see a disheveled female ghost opening her bloody mouth and rushing towards him, as if wanting to bite off his head. Female ghost. Just think of me as ugly. You are attacked by a mental attack and fall into a dizzy state. Use Crimson Sacrifice and consume life points to remove the dizziness. What's the point of wasting my life? I don't even have enough time to live for the last year. Li Xiao was too weak to complain, and tried to endure the mental discomfort, and pointed fiercely in the northwest direction. The two forbidden skeleton soldiers number 2 and number 7 rushed over like sharp arrows. The attacker is to the northwest. This time the dizziness lasted for nearly 10 seconds. During these 10 seconds, Li Xiao only felt that the hideous and terrifying female ghost suddenly bit his head, and then pulled it hard, but it couldn't be torn off. Either the female ghost has bad teeth, or Li Xiao has a strong neck. In short, this feeling was very unpleasant. After the ghost bit my head, everything in front of me became dark and I lost control of my body. After 10 seconds, the ghost disappeared. In fact, there is no such thing as a female ghost in reality. This is a spiritual spell that creates an illusion in the opponent's consciousness space to make the opponent lose control of the body. It has to be said that this is a very powerful control skill. Li Xiao's spirit points reach 7 points, which is higher than the forbidden skeleton soldiers, and they can be controlled for 10 seconds. If he had faced such an opponent alone without any guards, he would probably be dead by now. Bang, bang, bang. 200 meters to the northwest, two forbidden skeleton soldiers were fighting with the enemy and seemed to have discovered the attacker. Li Xiao waved his hand and rushed over with the surrounding forbidden skeleton soldiers. When you get closer, you can see that number 2 and number 7 are facing 4 enemies. A skeleton swordsman holding 2 bone swords in each hand, a skeleton shield guard holding a giant shield as tall as a person, and a skeleton knight wearing bone armor and riding a skeleton warhorse. Next to the skeleton knight, there was a gray cloak floating. There was no human figure in the cloak, just a ball of gray air. Encountered a strong enemy. Li Xiao's heart sank. In the world of the dead, the rank of a soldier like the skeleton can be seen from his appearance. The cannon fodder that is not of the highest rank is usually made of bones of the lowest quality condensed with a tiny bit of undead aura, and some are even missing arms and legs. First-level skeleton militia generally have intact bones, complete weapons in their hands, and have simple combat capabilities. Like the swordsman with a two-handed sword and the shield guard with a giant shield, these are the elite among the first-level skeleton soldiers. The second-level skeleton soldiers are real combat soldiers. Skeleton soldiers of this level generally have complete equipment and relatively complete combat instincts. Some of them even have simple intelligence and can use traps, feints, combos and other attack capabilities. Their combat power is a level higher than that of the first-level militia. At this moment, the 3 skeleton soldiers here are very powerful. Number 2 and number 7 are facing a first-level militiaman, and they are fighting back and forth, and they can't win for a while. The second-level skeleton cavalryman didn't make any move at all. The gray airflow wearing a cloak beside the skeleton cavalry is the real leader of this team, a second-level undead wizard. That mental attack was released by it. Number 1 stays here to protect me, and the rest of you rush forward and kill them. Li Xiao gave the order in his mind. All of a sudden, all 17 forbidden skeleton soldiers rushed over. 8 of them rushed towards the skeleton swordsman and the skeleton shield guard respectively, and the remaining 9 forbidden skeletons rushed towards the skeleton cavalry. Number 1 stood beside Li Xiao, with the white bone bow in his hand pulled into a full moon. On the bowstring condensed with magic power, a crystal-clear white bone arrow was aimed at the undead wizard. Woo woo woo, ah! When the undead wizard saw Li Xiao's appearance, he suddenly became excited and made sounds like the whistling of cold wind. Li Xiao frowned. This wasn't a mental attack. It looked like he was trying to talk to him. Unfortunately, there was a language barrier and he couldn't understand. Undead witch. Boss, please don't kill me. Boom boom. The skeleton horses under the skeleton cavalry whistled and drove the cavalry's body to meet the 9 forbidden skeletons. With one charge, the leading number 5 was directly pierced through the ribs by the lance in the hands of the skeleton cavalry, and then lifted up high. The huge force of the warhorse's charge caused the 5 forbidden skeletons behind to fly backwards. The last 4 forbidden skeletons avoided the strongest impact and chopped the skeleton cavalry madly with the bone spears and bone knives in their hands. For a moment, bone fragments flew everywhere, and the void was filled with the teeth-grinding sound of bones rubbing and breaking. Buzz. The bow in number 1's hand, which was drawn into a full moon, suddenly flew out, like a dazzling white light suddenly bursting out, piercing through the skeleton swordsman holding two swords with a sharp whistle that tore through the air. The double swordsman, who had been barely able to hold out under the siege of the 5 forbidden skeletons, could no longer hold on. The 5 forbidden skeletons rushed forward and chopped him to pieces in an instant. The gray-black soul aura was divided into 6 parts and was swallowed by 5 forbidden skeletons and no. 1. After dealing with a powerful enemy, 2 forbidden skeletons rushed towards the shield guard, while the remaining 3 continued to rush towards the skeleton cavalry. The skeleton shield guard has extremely strong defense. The bone shield in its hand, which is as tall as a person, looks extremely heavy, but is extremely flexible in its hand, blocking all attacks. However, the 7 forbidden skeletons formed a group and attacked together, which was still able to break through its blockade and cause it real damage. It seemed that it was only a matter of time before it was defeated. On the other side, the 2nd-level skeleton cavalry was truly brave and was able to handle the siege of 12 forbidden skeletons with ease. There was number 5 strong on the spear in its hand, and it used the spear in number 5 as a huge hammer to smash around desperately, knocking away the surrounding forbidden skeletons. The 1st-level forbidden skeleton was still no match for the regular 2nd-level combat soldier in terms of strength, and was easily knocked away by it, and could only barely maintain the front line. It seems that only after the 7 forbidden skeletons kill the shield guard and all the forbidden skeletons rush forward can it be possible to kill this powerful skeleton cavalry. Woo-woo-woo, woo-woo-woo. The scream of the 2nd-level necromancer rang out again, and Li Xiao was startled, thinking that it was going to launch another mental attack. But this time he was not attacked. In fact, for a 2nd-level necromancer, he first summoned 100 low-level skeleton soldiers. It summoned 3 more powerful skeleton warriors and cast a powerful mental attack spell. Its magic power should have run out. At this moment, its scream seemed to want to say something, but there was no way, because of the language barrier. Li Xiao couldn't understand what it meant at all. Who said that all living beings in the universe speak Chinese and write Chinese characters? At least he really couldn't understand the screams of this necromancer. The battle situation was very stable. The shield guard was almost unable to hold on under the siege of 7 forbidden skeletons. 3 of his ribs were cut off and he was sure of victory. Li Xiao also relaxed and turned on the crimson vision to see the quality of the remaining 3 undead soldiers. That shield guard was quite good, just a 1st-level militia shield guard, but in the evolution results seen by the crimson vision, he was a 3rd-level warrior-level skeleton heavy armored warrior, wrapped in thick armor, holding a giant shield and a war hammer. In other words, this 1st-level shield guard has an evolutionary cap of 3rd level, which is already very rare. And that powerful-looking skeleton cavalry did not change at all in the crimson vision. It had reached its upper limit, and the 2nd-order skeleton cavalry was its top level. When the crimson vision took a look at the necromancer, Li Xiao was stunned. In the preview page on the panel, the evolved necromancer is a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, wearing a black robe, white hair like snow, and eyes as pure white as ice and snow. Witch of the Darkness, Legion type, level 4. Strength, physical fitness, spirit. Explanation. This is a necromancer who evolved naturally from the aura of death in the underworld. Her understanding of summoning and blessing necromancy spells is at the pinnacle. She can often summon 10 times more servants than a death warlock of the same level to fight, and can give them powerful death weapons. However, in contrast, her combat and resistance capabilities are relatively weak. Dark Witch Banshee. Oh no, isn't this a novel for females, but for males? Oh, this necromancer is really good. His evolved form is almost as beautiful as the forbidden female guards. Li Xiao's eyes lit up. Buzz. The bone bow in number 1's hand, which was pulled into a full moon, showed its power again. A bright white light instantly crossed the void and pierced through the shield guard's head. The 7 forbidden skeleton soldiers who had been besieging it for a long time had been waiting for this moment. While its body was stiff due to injuries, they rushed forward, directly tore open its shield, and chopped it into pieces in an instant. Woo-woo-woo, woo-woo-woo. The necromancer started screaming again, but Li Xiao really couldn't understand it. I can only say that the witch in the crimson vision with white hair, white eyes and skin as white as ice and snow is indeed very beautiful. Buzz. The bone bow in number 1's hand worked for the 3rd time. The blazing white beam of light pierced through the skeleton cavalryman's right shoulder, directly tearing apart its entire right arm along with the spear in his hand. The outcome has been decided. A total of 18 forbidden skeletons rushed forward, first chopping off the horse's legs, then the limbs, and then continuing to hack at it. In less than half a minute, the skeleton cavalryman's body was chopped into pieces. But its head was extremely hard and could not be broken even after being hit several times by the bone knife. Number 5, who was pierced on the bone spear, finally regained his freedom of movement. Seeing this, he suddenly broke his rib that was pierced, picked up the bone spear in his hand, rushed forward and stabbed it hard, and with a bang, the head was smashed to pieces. It seems that number 5 is feeling resentful. The skeleton cavalry was finally completely destroyed. A thick soul aura floated out, then split into 20 parts and sank into the bodies of the 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers. The improvement brought to them by this kill was particularly obvious. Almost every forbidden skeleton soldier's physique or strength increased by 1 point. Number 1's strength even increased by 2 points. The damage caused by her bow and arrow is considered a fatal attack according to the rules of the undead world. Although the number of attacks is small, the output is high. All the skeleton soldiers have been eliminated. 19 forbidden skeletons surrounded the undead wizard. There was nothing in their black eye sockets, as if there was not even a trace of soul. But at this moment, any living being could feel the meaning of the words, unfriendly eyes, from their actions. The bone bow in number 1's hand was pulled into a full moon again, and number 2 had an extra bone sword in his hand, becoming a double swordsman. Number 5 was holding the more than 2-meter-long cavalry bone spear in his hand. Balls of white light kept emerging from his hand, covering the bone spear. It seemed that he was using magic power to refine the weapon. The other forbidden skeleton soldiers also raised their weapons, and white light was emanating from their weapons. That is the symbol of the magic power they drive in their bodies. Weapons infused with magic power not only have physical attack capabilities, but also magical attacks. Even an undead wizard who has no physical body and is just a ball of death breath will be chopped to death. Woo woo woo, woo woo woo. The cries of the necromancer became smaller and smaller, and there was an obvious tone of pleading and begging for mercy. After a moment, it lifted a corner of its black cloak, and from the gray airflow, an exceptionally dense gray-black light ball separated and floated in front of Li Xiao. This is a soul contract. According to the rules of the undead world, if an intelligent undead creature is defeated in a battle, it can choose to separate a part of its soul essence and give it to the winner to sign a soul contract. Having the origin of the soul controlled by the other party is the most pious ceremony of loyalty, which is equivalent to handing over the control of one's own life and death. This is also the most common way of loyalty in the undead biological system. Li Xiao pondered for a moment, and did not take the soul essence. Instead, he stretched out his hand and activated another ability of his. Taboo Brand. The forbidden magic power surged out and transformed into a heptagonal rune in the palm of his hand, which was imprinted on the airflow in the body of the undead wizard. Use the forbidden brand to calculate the difference in strength between the two. Calculation completed. The target has 300 soul points, and needs to consume 300 forbidden magic points to achieve the complete branding effect. Are you sure? Note: under the full branding effect, the target can never betray. Both parties of the branding can obtain the completion of the Crimson Origin. The growth and strength of the target will become a help to the Forbidden Master. Under the full branding effect, it does not take up soul burden. Sure enough, I have this ability without burdening my soul. Li Xiao was immediately pleasantly surprised and clicked the confirm button without hesitation. As the forbidden magic power transformed into a layer of dark golden light and enveloped the undead wizard, his form slowly changed. According to the rules of the world of the dead, there is a limit to the number of soul contracts that any creature can sign. Although integrating a part of the opponent's soul essence into one's own soul can be regarded as controlling the opponent's life and death, it also greatly increases the burden on one's own soul. Therefore, no matter how powerful a being is, the number of soul slaves it can have is limited. Moreover, soul slaves cannot accept the soul contract loyalty ceremony of others because their own soul origin is incomplete. This is an iron rule. Otherwise, the strongest undead creature would have already taken control of the entire underworld. It is precisely because of the existence of this iron law that in the world of the dead, just like in human society, those powerful lords, kings and even gods cannot guarantee the absolute loyalty of their subordinates. Loyalty, betrayal, fighting, grudges, devouring, war, are the eternal themes of the world of the dead. The complete branding effect of the forbidden brand can guarantee the other party's absolute loyalty, and does not burden the soul. This is undoubtedly a more powerful contract method than the soul contract. Moreover, there is no quantity limit. There is no quantity limit. When the mark transformed from forbidden magic penetrated into the body of the necromancer, Li Xiao instantly understood the effect of the so-called complete mark. To put it bluntly, this is actually a complete transformation. The dark golden forbidden magic power poured into the soul of the necromancer, transforming it from the deepest level of the spirit particle arrangement, integrating its own magical aura into the origin of her soul. During this process, the forbidden magic maintained all the original abilities of her soul, and even strengthened some of them, making up for some of the deficiencies in her soul. In this way, the forbidden magic has absolute control over the essence of her soul, just like a GM has control over the source code of the program he created. In the process of this transformation, Li Xiao herself also received feedback from her soul power. This kind of repayment is like gaining a kind of knowledge, which prompts the deep red origin in the depths of his soul to evolve and develop. As the dark golden light gradually dissipated, a new line of information appeared on Li Xiao's panel. Obtained Forbidden Servant. Undead Witch Level 2. Spirit, 35. Soul Life, no strength and constitution attributes. Undead Magic Power, 1050 points. Talent 1. Great Summoning. The Undead Witch can consume very little magic power to summon a large number of low-level undead soldiers. At least 1 point of undead magic power is enough to summon one skeleton soldier. Talent 2. Death Armament. The Undead Witch can condense weapons and equipment for the undead warriors to increase the target's combat effectiveness. Skill. Soul Whale. The Undead Witch can release a whale that penetrates the soul and launches a mental attack on the target. The image of the transformed Undead Witch has completely changed. She is no longer a ball of air covered in a black robe, but a graceful female figure. His facial features are similar to those of the white-haired and white-eyed man in the Crimson World, except that his hair and eyes are gray-blue, not pure white. Unfortunately, she was still an illusory soul, without a real body. Li Xiao tried to hug her, but couldn't feel anything in his hand. This was a pity. When undead creatures evolve to the 4th stage, they can smelt the rules of heaven and earth, reverse life and death, and obtain a powerful body of rules. It seems that Li Xiao's dream can only be realized when she evolves to the 4th stage. Undead Witch. I thought I was the heroine, but I was just a ball of fluff. After the Undead Witch completed her evolution, the forbidden mark began to benefit Li Xiao herself. As the forbidden magic power continued to flow in the body, groups of warm air surged up from the limbs and bones and converged into the center of the eyebrows. It made him feel as if his whole body had been baptized. A new stream of information is refreshed on the panel. Complete a branding, gain branding feedback. Spirit +2, Constitution +2, Strength +1. Gained expertise. Taboo connection. Taboo master and fully branded taboo slave have extraordinary connection effects. They can communicate with each other across time and space, and Taboo Master can draw on the extraordinary power of Taboo Slave at any time to replenish his own consumption. Li Xiao looked at his own panel, then at the panel of the Forbidden Skeleton Soldiers, and then at the panel of the Undead Witch, and immediately found a difference. I couldn't help but ask, why do you have so little magic power? The round foreheads of the Forbidden Skeleton Soldiers were full of question marks, and the Undead Witch looked at him timidly and responded respectfully. Lord, what do you mean? I am not in the 1st level now. My spirit points were originally 7 points, and my magic point limit was 700. Now I have added 2 points, making it 9 points. My magic point limit has also reached 900 points. Number 1's spiritual points have reached 7 points, but his magic power is only 70. Li Xiao couldn't help asking. You have 35 spiritual points, but only 1050 magic points. How come a 2nd level undead witch like you has so little magic power? This. The Undead Witch seemed to be confused for a moment, thinking that the master was blaming her. She suddenly panicked and knelt down in midair. I am incompetent. No, I'm not blaming you for this. Li Xiao waved his hands quickly. By the way, how many magic points does one spirit point represent? It seems that everyone's ratio is different. Mine is 100, number 1's ratio is 110, and yours is 130. Is it your problem or mine? The Undead Witch panicked again. I am stupid and don't quite understand what the master means. This. Li Xiao understood. After all, he was the only one with a panel, and he could see all kinds of data very intuitively through the panel. But for other people, there is no panel. I don't quite understand what the spirit or magic value is. So he changed the question. Xiao, by the way, what's your name? I don't have a name. You belong to the Lich clan. From now on, you can be called Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao, okay. Thank you for the name, Lord. The undead witch became visibly excited. She had not been born with intelligence for long, and her concept of self had always been vague. After receiving the power of the taboo mark to complete her intelligence, she gained complete intelligence, and naturally she was very happy. Yao, let me ask you. Have you ever encountered a second-level being before? Do you think their magic power is greater, or yours? Li Xiao asked. The undead witch Yao lowered her head and responded in a low voice. Master, although my ability is not high, my magic power is not small among people of the same level. Li Xiao seemed to be thinking about something, and then asked, when you were promoted from level 1 to level 2, you felt that the magic power in your body increased several times. Do you remember? About 3 or 4 times. Yao was a little unsure. That's right. Li Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that for normal undead creatures, including the forbidden skeleton soldiers and the undead witch Yao, the ratio of spirit value to magic power should be 1 to 10 at the first level. In other words, 1 spirit point represents a maximum of 10 magic points. Then after advancing, from the first level to the second level, the life level will evolve, and the conversion coefficient of the basic 3-dimensional points and strength will also increase. That is, the ratio of spirit points to magic power will increase from 1 to 10 to about 1 to 30. The second level Yao has 35 spirit points and 1050 magic points, which is exactly 1 to 30. So what happened to him? Without entering the rank, the ratio of his spiritual power to his magic power reached 100. Is this the characteristic of the forbidden demonic body? I can only say that the 61 years of Krypton life were not wasted. The abilities of the 3 professional specialties of forbidden summoning, forbidden brand, and forbidden magic body are not simple. Taboo summoning. Yes, every skeleton I summon is a girl. After using the 2 abilities of taboo summoning and taboo brand, 300 each time, after 2 times, Li Xiao's taboo magic power was at the bottom. Although the increase in spirit points led to an increase in the magic power limit, the consumed magic power still had to be recovered bit by bit. After dealing with Yao, there seemed to be no danger around, so Li Xiao relaxed and found a slightly flat terrain to sit down. He started chatting with Yao and getting familiar with the surrounding environment. How did you find me? I have sensed the changes in the sun and the moon. The communication between Yao and Li Xiao is a spiritual one. In fact, her lich body does not yet have the ability to speak. However, communication at the spiritual level can express things more completely and accurately. At this moment, Li Xiao clearly felt that her soul had been cautious, as if afraid of angering him. You know what, this is quite cute. The sun and the moon in the underworld. Li Xiao looked up at the 2 huge skull-like celestial bodies in the sky. In fact, he couldn't figure out whether they were stars or something else. However, he had been looking at the 2 skulls for a long time when he first came here. At this moment, when he looked carefully again, he could clearly sense a very thin red light between the eyebrows of the 2 skulls. The dark moon goddess and the dark light angel. There was no way he could ignore the 2 progress bars, transformation progress 0.61%, on the panel. Recalling the process of how he obtained the Forbidden Lord career system, many things became clear to him. No matter whether the 2 skulls were the real sun and moon, or some innate gods, or some other existence, they seemed to have been infected by his origin. Only, after sacrificing 61 years of life, the transformation progress is only 0.61%. In other words, if you want to achieve 100% transformation progress, you need to consume a full 10,000 years of life. These 2 goddesses, or really, fatal. Moon goddess, isn't it worth it to take your life for 10,000 years? Li Xiao shook her head, not thinking about goddesses or angels, and asked some key questions. Do you know what forces are around this area? Yao nodded vigorously. I know a little about this. After all, I summoned a lot of skeleton soldiers. It seemed that she finally had an ability that she could demonstrate in front of the master. Yao spoke excitedly. No one can tell how big the boundless sea of bones is, but although it is an endless ocean of bones, there are also some mountains, rivers and landforms. As a wild lich formed automatically by the spiritual energy of the underworld, Yao Yao doesn't know much, but she has an instinct similar to that of a wild beast. She knew which places were dangerous, where there were enemies, where she couldn't go, and where she could secretly take advantage. And thanks to her great summoning technique, although the quality of the summoned skeleton soldiers is not high, their number is 10 times that of ordinary liches. She can put part of her soul breath on them, which is equivalent to having many spies, and she really understands the surrounding terrain. The northern Bone Mountain, the western Bone Forest, the southern Bone Sea, and the eastern Bone Tower are all commanded by powerful 4th Order Lord-level warriors, with a large number of various skeleton soldiers under their command. The area they were in was actually the junction of the 4 major forces, and it was also a training ground. Every once in a while, 3rd-level warriors from the 4 major forces would come here to select soldiers. In the endless world of the dead, the skeleton clan has always been the lowest level of the entire underworld. No matter whether the various forces in the underworld are fighting each other, or the underworld is at war with other worlds, the skeleton clan is a real cannon fodder. Therefore, the armies under the command of each lord or even king were consumed very quickly, and they had to recruit a new batch of skeleton soldiers as replenishment every once in a while. Among the 4 major regions, the lord of the western Bone Forest was said to have just died in a war some time ago, so the situation is extremely tense. Many peak 3rd-level warriors are fighting each other for the position of lord. It is a chaotic place full of opportunities. In a sunken mountain cave, 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers were scattered around to serve as guards. Li Xiao sat cross-legged on a slightly flat stone, meditating silently for more than an hour, and sighed helplessly. The speed of automatic recovery of forbidden magic power is very slow. On average, it can only recover 100 points in an hour, less than 2 points per minute. The 600 magic points consumed will take 5 or 6 hours to recover. Yao Yao's magic power recovers much faster. She can restore her magic power to full in an hour, which is 10 times faster than Li Xiao. According to her, for undead creatures, 10 spirit points is a hurdle. Before 10 points, the magic power recovery of undead creatures depends on natural recovery. After reaching 10 points, you can automatically comprehend some basic techniques to restore magic power. For example, the Lich clan can obtain meditation when the spirit points reach 10, 20, or 30 points, and the level of each meditation skill increases step by step. This is one of the basic laws of the underworld. As long as you evolve, you can gain a variety of basic abilities. Of course, those advanced meditation techniques, offensive magical powers and powerful spells need to be comprehended by yourself or taught by others. The recovery abilities of different races were not applicable. Yao Yao taught Li Xiao the 3rd-level meditation technique without reservation, but after Li Xiao practiced for an hour, the speed of magic power recovery did not change at all. This is really helpless. Before his spirit points reached 10, he had no offensive means and no means to restore his magic power, and could only rely on the forbidden skeleton soldiers he summoned. Fortunately, the forbidden skeleton soldiers are strong enough, which is a consolation. There was no point in just sitting there, and there was nothing else to do. Seeing that Yao Yao had recovered her magic power and seemed eager to try, Li Xiao's mind moved. Yao Yao, dance for me. I'm not Yao Yao, I roll my eyes. Ah, the undead witch was dumbfounded and stammered, Lord, I don't know how to. It's simple, just follow my instructions. Put your hands in front of you. Yeah, that's it, lift your butt back, and twist your waist. I have to say, Yao Yao has a great figure. Li Xiao praised repeatedly. The little witch blushed and began to twist her body as ordered by the master. Li Xiao was helpless, really helpless. Yao Yao's figure and temperament are perfect, comparable to those top internet celebrities before she traveled through time. And she is well behaved and obedient. But now she is an invisible soul with no entity at all. We can see her but cannot touch her. What else can we do if not let her dance to please the eyes? However, after watching for less than 10 minutes, Li Xiao's scalp began to tingle, so she had to stop. There is no way. Yao Yao dances really beautifully, and it is too beautiful. The forbidden demon body can automatically absorb the dead air of the underworld in the surrounding void to maintain the body's consumption, so Li Xiao doesn't need to eat. Besides, there is really nothing to eat in such a broken place as the underworld. So he suddenly realized that while his magic power was recovering, he could not do anything and could only wait. Yao Yao, how did you pass the time in the past? Perhaps because he had just traveled through time and space and had been a vegetable for too long, Li Xiao still had no desire to sleep, so he had to bite the bullet and ask. I used to summon a lot of skeletons, use up most of their magic power, and then let them fight. The ones that survived at the end would become stronger. That's how I got my 3 guards. The undead witch didn't hide anything. Li Xiao's eyes lit up, and he quickly said, then continue. Do your best to summon skeleton soldiers and let them fight. Or you can keep them for number 1 and the others to practice with. Yao Yao was naturally obedient. She did not hold back at all and used all her magic power. Li Xiao looked carefully. Yao Yao only needed to consume 10 magic points to activate the undead summoning formation. However, her summoning formation was extremely simple. Apart from a big skull, there was no other decorative patterns. 10 points of magic power were used to activate the formation, and the remaining 950 points of magic power were all used to summon skeleton soldiers. After a moment, 950 skeleton soldiers appeared around, forming a dense sea of soldiers. Oh my god, Li Xiao was really shocked. Yao Yao's summoning technique was really amazing. Although the quality of the skeleton soldiers was not good, the number was really strong. Yao Yao, whose magic power was completely exhausted, became obviously very weak. After giving the skeleton soldiers an order to fight each other, she floated beside Li Xiao, sat cross-legged and entered a state of meditation, using meditation to restore her magic power. Nearly 1,000 skeleton soldiers suddenly started fighting each other. Their fighting situation was completely like a fight between weaklings. Even Li Xiao, who rushed forward with bare hands, could smash their fragile skeletons with one punch. Their fighting power was horrible. However, as the battle progressed and they absorbed the undead aura from each other, some of the skeletons had clearly evolved. Their bones began to become complete, their strength increased, and their fighting style became tougher. When the number reaches a certain level, there will always be some outstanding ones. Soon, several skeleton soldiers stood out. After killing some miscellaneous soldiers, they became stronger. The magic power gathered in the hand of one of the skeleton soldiers actually formed a black shadow dagger. It was very fast, and with a slight wave of his arm he could behead a skeleton soldier and absorb the opponent's undead breath. Li Xiao noticed its performance. He curiously took a look with Crimson Vision and was so shocked that he almost jumped up. In the Crimson Vision, a beam of dazzling silver light burst out and transformed into a black 3-dimensional image next to the skeleton soldier holding the dagger. It was a young-looking man, his entire body seemed to be covered with a layer of shadow, and the dagger in his hand was made purely of shadow. Its evolutionary limit is clearly shown on the panel. Shadow Blade, Level 5. Strength, Physical, Spirit, Ability. Explanation. Shadow Blade is the most feared assassin in the world of the dead, the master of the night, and the king worshipped by killers. Wherever there is a shadow, his blade will be invincible. Oh my god, the potential for evolution to the 5th order king level. Li Xiao was really shocked. A 5th level expert was also a top-notch existence in the world of the dead. After all, the 6th level is a myth. In many cases, mythical existences are just legends, and ordinary undead creatures can never see them. Li Xiao's eyes flickered as he looked at the skeleton assassin who was invincible and unstoppable among the skeleton soldiers. He gritted his teeth and secretly gave orders, asking the 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers to quietly surround him. What a pity, what a pity. This skeleton soldier with the potential for king-level evolution is actually a male. If it was a woman, Li Xiao would definitely not be stingy with his magic power and would immediately cast a forbidden mark on it and make it his own. It's a pity that this guy is a man, so he naturally cannot be kept. No matter how great the potential is, it cannot be left behind. It must be eliminated. Ever since he discovered that all his forbidden skeleton soldiers could evolve into beautiful forbidden female guards, Li Xiao never thought of recruiting men as his subordinates. Buzz. The huge bone bow that was pulled into a full moon shape in number 1's hand was released with a bang, sounding the horn of the siege. Then, a scene that made Li Xiao's scalp tingle appeared. The skeleton assassin was slaughtering the miscellaneous soldiers wantonly, when suddenly a dazzling white light pierced through. The skeleton soldier suddenly twisted his body and leaned his upper body backwards quickly, actually avoiding the attack of the arrow. Should I say this, is this the potential of a 5th order undead king? Even though he hasn't reached the 1st order, he already has such a terrifying fighting instinct. But its good luck ended there. The remaining 19 forbidden skeleton soldiers rushed over instantly, almost standing against each other to form an impenetrable skeleton wall to surround the assassin, and then chopped wildly with the bone weapons in their hands. No matter how high the skeleton assassin's evolutionary potential is, it has just escaped from the ranks of miscellaneous soldiers and has not even been fully promoted to a first-level militia. Faced with the impenetrable siege of 19 forbidden skeleton soldiers who were definitely stronger than ordinary militiamen, it could not dodge the attack of 20 weapons no matter how well it could dodge. He only had time to raise his arm and stab the black shadow dagger in his hand into the bone of number 2's chest, and was chopped into several pieces. Number 2's two-handed sword spun like the wind, cutting the skeleton assassin's body into pieces in a few swipes. Then he dropped the two-handed sword, held the dagger on his chest with one hand, and pressed the skeleton assassin's origin with the other hand. A wisp of inky black undead aura rushed out from the fragments and sank into number 2's body. Li Xiao opened the crimson vision, not daring to breathe, staring at number 2 nervously, praying silently in his heart. Amitabha, God, Allah, Jehovah, Jade Emperor, Avalokitesvara, the Buddha of victory, whoever it is, please bless number 2 to devour the assassin's talent. That's the potential for 5th level evolution. No, those gods are not gods of this world. Then who? Dark Moon Goddess Wife, Dark Light Angel Wife, you two must bless and let number 2 obtain this evolutionary potential. From now on, you are the legal wives, and number 2 will serve you tea and water. Li Xiao muttered to himself, and even subconsciously looked up at the 2 huge skulls in the sky. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but at that moment, he clearly saw a red light flickering faintly between the eyebrows of the 2 skulls. Perhaps the 2 goddesses who had not yet transformed really heard this guy's prayers. When Li Xiao turned his gaze back to number 2, the originally purple 3-dimensional light and shadow in the deep red vision changed slightly and turned into a ball of silver light. The 3-dimensional image of the originally charming, pure and lovely forbidden female guard has completely changed. The black mist swirled around, transforming into a tight-fitting suit that wrapped around her beautiful body. Her white hair was piled high, and her hands were holding 2 slender tang swords formed by black shadows, exuding a cold and elegant aura. In the real world, after number 2 devoured the undead aura of the skeleton assassin, a faint black shadow emanated from her body. The shadow condensed in her palm and turned into 2 slender black tang swords. Number 2, Night Blade. You must remember that I am the first one with evolutionary potential. The information on the panel refreshed, and Li Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. The first piece of information is the panel after the evolution of No. 2. Forbidden Skeleton Soldier Number 2, Level 1, Strength 12, Constitution 13, Spirit 19. Expertise: Forbidden Guard, Fighting Instinct. Talent: Shadow Blade. She can condense the power of shadow into an extremely sharp blade, causing a double blow to the physical body and the soul at the same time. The second piece of information is the panel in the Crimson Vision showing number 2 evolving into its full form. Night Blade Level 5 Strength. Physical. Spirit. Description: Night Blade is the most feared assassin under the command of the Forbidden Lord. She is the god of death in the night and the master of the shadows. She faithfully carries out the orders of the Forbidden Lord and brings death and destruction to all enemies. Then, there is a third message. Your summon, Taboo Skeleton Soldier number 2 has evolved and gained the King-level Shadow talent. Under the guidance of the Taboo Law, her ability has a feedback effect on you. The Forbidden Skeleton Soldier number 2 has developed basic intelligence, and she has a soul bond with you. Constitution +2, Spirit +2, Strength +3. Gained expertise: Forbidden Magic Knife. Consume forbidden magic power to condense into a long knife, which can cause a double blow to reality and the soul. Continuous attacks can disintegrate the opponent's fighting will, and there is a chance that the opponent's fighting will collapses and kneels down to surrender. Forbidden Demonic Blade. About that. Your spiritual points exceed 10 points, and you gain the expertise: Forbidden Secret Language. Interacting with forbidden summons can speed up the recovery of magic power. Professional Advancement Conditions. Create soul bonds with at least 5 forbidden summons 1/5. This time the panel refreshed a lot of information, and Li Xiao took a while to understand it. First of all, the evolution of the Forbidden Skeleton Soldier's potential can actually bring him rewards. This is an ability exclusive to the Forbidden Mark. It seems that in the judgment of the Forbidden Lord profession, all forbidden summons are beings that have been completely branded. That being said, in addition to regular training, if he continues to improve the potential and abilities of his summoned creatures, he himself is actually also practicing. Moreover, the effect of cultivation is better than formal cultivation. Secondly, after number 2 evolved, it is still at the first level, but its 3 attributes have leapt, and now it is the strongest among the forbidden skeleton soldiers. The panel indicated that a soul bond had been formed with number 2, but Li Xiao did not sense that number 2 had developed any intelligence. He tried to communicate with number 2 using his spiritual power, but received no response. Could it be that the number 2 rank is too low, so the intelligence is limited and the communication ability is not yet available? Then what is the special session about the forbidden secret language? He had to interact with the forbidden summons to quickly restore his magic power, but he couldn't interact with them now. Whether it was number 2 or number 1, or other forbidden skeletons, he couldn't interact with them now. This is a late-stage ability. It's totally useless at this stage. Finally, the professional advancement conditions came out, and it seemed that Yao Yao was right. For undead creatures, reaching 10 spirit points was indeed a key point. With various thoughts running through his mind, Li Xiao looked at Yao Yao, who was still concentrating on recovering her magic power while floating in the air, and seemed to be thinking about something. Perhaps, he has just discovered the correct usage of Yao Yao. Keep summoning skeleton soldiers and keep conducting auditions. Select those skeleton soldiers with extremely high evolutionary potential, and either use them as nutrients to nourish the forbidden skeleton soldiers, or activate the forbidden mark to make them slaves. In this way, the skeleton soldiers and taboo skeleton soldiers under him will have higher potential and stronger strength. In return, his own strength will also become stronger. This seems to be the correct way to use Yao Yao. An hour later, when Yao Yao's magic power was fully recovered and she woke up from meditation, she saw the Lord staring at her without blinking with a very strange expression. Yao Yao blushed and lowered her eyes. Her intelligence had been fully developed, so she naturally understood some instincts. The way the Overlord looked at her was as if he wanted to eat her up. But she can't condense into a physical body yet. If she can't do it, she can just dance a few more times for him. Yao Yao. Li Xiao's voice was very soft and deep, with a strange and ambiguous feeling. Have you rested well? Yao Yao blushed and nodded shyly. Master, what do you want Yao Yao to do? Summon another batch of skeleton soldiers. Li Xiao laughed. It must be very uncomfortable to use up all your magic power. Let's not use it up this time. Keep some for backup. We won't do anything else today. We'll just summon as many batches as we can. Yao Yao was stunned. Facts have proved that skeleton soldiers with high evolutionary potential are really not easy to come by. In the next 9 hours, Yao Yao activated the Great Summoning spell every hour to summon 900 skeleton soldiers. Then Li Xiao opened the Crimson Vision and looked at them one by one. Basically, more than 90% of the miscellaneous soldiers have no potential for evolution. They can only be used as cannon fodder. Even if they kill other skeleton soldiers, they cannot absorb the breath of the undead. Only less than 10% of the skeleton soldiers have the potential to evolve into first-level militia. Among these skeleton soldiers, only less than 10% have the potential to evolve into second-level combat soldiers. For 9 hours, Yao Yao summoned more than 8,000 skeleton soldiers, but only about 40 of them had the potential to evolve into second-level combat soldiers, not even one with third-level potential. The 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers did experience a wave of evolution, but as their spirit points reached 10 points, their physique and strength also reached about 7 or 8 points, there was no improvement in killing these miscellaneous soldiers. Because these miscellaneous soldiers contain too little undead aura, they must kill stronger undead creatures to gain significant improvement. The strength of the forbidden skeleton soldiers increased, but their potential did not increase, so there was no feedback effect on Li Xiao. Therefore, his strength did not increase. Moreover, he also discovered the limitations of his forbidden demonic body, that is, he could not absorb the breath of the undead when he killed the skeleton soldiers with his own hands. According to the rules of the undead world, Li Xiao is not considered an undead creature, so he cannot enjoy the effect of undead creatures devouring each other's souls to strengthen themselves. We are all just cannon fodder. In any case, after 9 hours, the basic 3-dimensional attributes of the 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers doubled to about 10 points. Li Xiao's magic value was restored to full value, and he also condensed a forbidden magic knife in his hand. Yao Yao's magic value also returned to full value, and after a night of summoning, her spirit value also increased by 1 point, reaching 36 points. This is how magic works. If you keep releasing it and practicing it, you will be able to improve it. This is the most basic method of practice. Everything was in place. Li Xiao was wearing coral fleece pajamas that had almost become ragged. He held a slender dark golden long sword in his hand and pointed to the west with high spirits. Let's go. Our destination is the vast bone forest. The 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers were silent. Yao Yao, the only member of the atmosphere group, was not in a good mood either. She floated silently behind him, making this spirited action look a little awkward. However, Li Xiao was always thick-skinned, so he wasn't embarrassed at all. However, he noticed that Yao Yao did seem to be a little depressed. Is it because you summoned too many times last night and are too tired? Li Xiao walked towards the west under the escort of 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers, and asked softly in the spiritual world. I'm sorry, I was so focused on evolving them yesterday that I went a little too far. I'm sorry. No. Yao Yao was startled. She was really panicked when she heard the master apologize in person. She said hurriedly. No. I'm not tired. Summoning skeletons is my instinct. It's nothing to practice all night. I'm really not tired. I feel like you're a little unhappy. Can you tell me why? Li Xiao asked sincerely. Anyway, you are the first person in this world who can talk to me and communicate with me. And you should be able to see that. I like you very much. His spiritual communication was very soothing. We are destined to be together for a long time, so I don't want you to have any emotions bottled up in your heart. Can you tell me why you are unhappy? I just. Feeling the gentle spiritual fluctuations of the master, Yao Yao felt her eyes turn red, and asked cautiously. Can I keep some of the guards I summoned? Just a few will be fine. If we necromancers don't have the guards we summoned ourselves, we'll feel very insecure. Li Xiao was stunned for a moment. He really overlooked this point. Undead wizards, especially pure soul liches like Yao Yao, have weak melee combat capabilities because they have no physical body. They are usually accustomed to training a group of powerful guards to protect them at all times. This is the instinct of the Lich clan. For example, when he first met Yao Yao, she was followed by a skeleton double swordsman, a skeleton shield guard, and a skeleton cavalryman. They were all her carefully trained personal guards. A necromancer cannot be without personal guards. The personal guards exist not only to provide protection, but many spells of high-level necromancers also require the cooperation of the personal guards to be cast. The two are similar to a symbiotic relationship. After becoming Li Xiao's forbidden slave, Yao Yao summoned more than 8,000 skeleton soldiers, but they all became nutrients for the growth of the forbidden skeleton soldiers. She had no time to train them into her own personal guards, so she was naturally a little disappointed. I really overlooked this, Li Xiao said solemnly. Of course you can. From now on, the growth of number 1 and the others will mainly rely on killing enemies to evolve. From now on, all the skeleton soldiers you summon will, I only need a few occasionally, and the rest will be left to you. Lord, Yao Yao is grateful for your kindness and generosity. Yao Yao really felt tears welling up in her eyes. But if you want to choose a personal guard, you can only choose females, not males. Li Xiao added, you are mine, you can't get close to other men. This. Yao Yao was stunned and asked cautiously, Master, how do skeleton soldiers distinguish between men and women? I can't really tell. I can see that. Li Xiao smiled. From now on, you can kill all the male elite skeleton soldiers you summon, and keep the female ones to train as your personal guards. Is that okay? Of course, no problem. Yao Yao breathed a sigh of relief and nodded subconsciously, I only need the presence of my personal guards. Of course, I will follow your instructions and only choose women as my personal guards. I belong to you. At the end of the conversation, her face inexplicably turned red. After realizing what the Lord meant, even though she was just a soul, Yao Yao still felt her chest pounding. The Master likes her very much and has a strong possessiveness towards her. Chapter 11. Everywhere in the endless sea of bones. They have no wisdom, only instincts, wandering aimlessly. Only if you get close enough to them will they attack instinctively. If you are far enough away, they will ignore you. The origins of these skeleton soldiers are actually very complicated. One part is the natural condensation of the aura of the underworld, which merged with the endless materials in the sea of bones and naturally turned into skeleton soldiers. Just like Yao Yao, they were born and raised by nature, a bit like the elves of heaven and earth. In fact, the number of this type of skeleton soldiers is the largest. The entire Bone Sea is actually a huge skeleton soldier production base. A large number of skeleton soldiers are produced every day and consumed every day. The other part was formed by various summoning spells. A high-level undead practitioner could summon tens of thousands of skeletons by just casting a skeleton summoning spell. On the one hand, they are used to build houses, castles, and city walls. Skeleton soldiers have unlimited endurance and are the best, most excellent, and cheapest labor force. On the other hand, skeleton soldiers are also the most common cannon fodder and miscellaneous soldiers in the underworld war, specifically used to consume the opponent's war resources. In this case, when the house is built or the war is over, most of the surviving skeleton soldiers are actually of no value, so they are simply released and allowed to wander around outside, going wherever they want, and no one cares about them anymore. After all, you can summon as many low-level cannon fodder as you want, and there is no value in keeping them. Of course, there are also people who like to conduct open auditions for skeleton soldiers, and then select some with high potential as their main combat arms, and spend resources and effort to train them. However, only a few can be selected and carefully trained, and they are an extremely small number. Most of the skeleton soldiers are really not worth that. Li Xiao, escorted by 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers and Yao Yao, walked more than 30 miles to the west and encountered more than 10 waves of skeleton soldiers. The number of people in each wave varies, ranging from a dozen to 300 or 400. The difference in strength between these skeleton soldiers is not that big. Basically, the number of first-level militiamen and non-ranked miscellaneous soldiers is about the same, about half and half. The combat power of 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers is definitely not comparable to that of these ordinary skeleton soldiers. Even if they are all first-level militiamen, one forbidden skeleton soldier can easily defeat 7 or 8 ordinary skeleton soldiers. Like a few special ones, for example, the bone arrows shot from the giant bow of number 1 can kill instantly, and the 2 thin and long tang swords formed by the power of shadows of number 2 are even more powerful, and there is no enemy under his sword. Number 5 melted the cavalry spear, which had the longest attack distance and the widest attack range. He was holding a cavalry spear that was more than 2 meters long and nearly 3 meters long, and wielded it vigorously, with great power. Although there are only 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers, their overall combat power is comparable to that of more than 200 ordinary skeleton militiamen. 1 against 10. They encountered battles of varying sizes along the way, and by the time they came to a strange hill with a bronze color, the 3-dimensional basic points of the forbidden skeleton soldiers had officially exceeded 10 points. Even Yao Yao has trained 3 skeleton swordsmen who have reached the peak of the first level. They are all female skeleton soldiers with the potential to evolve into the 3rd level in the Crimson Vision. The requirements for the 3rd rank were actually too low, and they were just for the time being. The guards she would choose from now on would have to be elites with the potential to reach the 4th rank at the very least. Yao Yao must be the one to be trained with emphasis. Li Xiao's attention and care for her far exceeds her own imagination. Magic Silver Secret Guard. Well, it's almost my turn to appear. Why does this mountain look so much like a coffin? Coming to the bronze hill, Li Xiao looked at it carefully for a long time, with some surprise in his eyes. Yao Yao looked carefully and saw that the strange hill was square at both ends, with only the middle seeming to be broken, and it was bulging high, forming the shape of a hill. The shape is very strange, like a huge coffin that hit a mountain and broke into 2 pieces. Just between the gap between the hill and the broken coffin, there are 2 valleys that can directly cross the hill. The entire hill, including the 2 square protrusions, has a bronze metallic color all over, which is clearly different from the grayish-white bones and stones in other places. Only the 2 canyons, which were the same grayish-white bone color as the rest of the place, seemed like some kind of natural signposts. The hill wasn't big, but it was about 300 to 400 meters high and covered a large area. If you wanted to go around it, you would probably waste at least an hour or 2. Without much hesitation, under the protection of a group of skeleton soldiers, Li Xiao walked towards the canyon on the left. When you come to a fork in the road, don't think too much, just go left. Before we made any progress, something strange happened. The sky suddenly darkened. I looked up subconsciously and saw a bright white light bursting down from the sky, like a brilliant sun falling from the sky. A huge pressure appeared from the void, like a high mountain pressing down. Li Xiao only felt his body suddenly sink, and was suppressed by the huge pressure. He was unable to control himself for a while and fell to the ground in embarrassment. The other skeleton soldiers also sank, and figure number 2 jumped onto Li Xiao's back and protected him with his body. Then, number 1, number 5, number 3, number 7, the loyal forbidden skeleton soldiers quickly piled up their bodies into a mountain of bones to protect Li Xiao firmly. Yao Yao's figure flashed, and her body suddenly shrank, turning into a ball of light and hiding in Li Xiao's clothes on his chest. The scorching sun in the air was not targeting them. In fact, the pressure that fell on Li Xiao was just the aftermath. In a trance, I seemed to hear a rebuke that shook the sky. Traitor, it's no use escaping to the underworld. No matter where you are, I will destroy you completely and wipe out your clan. Li Xiao couldn't see what was happening above at all. His head was pressed down by number 2 and stuck on its sternum. The forbidden skeleton soldier used the relatively densest part of his body to block his head and provide him with protection. Faintly, she could sense a shadow curtain rising from her body. It was a thin protective shield formed by number 2 driving the shadow magic power in her body. Around number 2, the bodies of the forbidden skeleton soldiers surrounded him tightly. Their magic power seemed to form some kind of resonance effect, connecting with each other and offsetting most of the aftermath of the pressure. At least Li Xiao felt that he would not be crushed to the point where he could not stand up. But now that there were 20 skeleton soldiers pressing on him, he really could not stand up. Explosions, vibrations, dust. Li Xiao felt like he had entered a modern battlefield with hot weapons. There were violent explosions all around him, the earth was shaking wildly, and the powerful spiritual power and death spiritual power in the sky were colliding and exploding violently. It almost smells like gunpowder. The power of heaven and earth around him surged like a tsunami, making Li Xiao feel like a small boat that could be overturned at any time. Amid the thunderous blast, there were occasional shouts of rebuke. Judging from the voice, it seems to be a woman. Traitor, die. Hongmeng Li Ji's sword, crackling. Yan Shuijin, I am the woman the protagonist of this book loves most. This. To be honest, Li Xiao really wanted to complain about the behavior of shouting out the names of special moves during a fight. But the scolding voice was really beautiful, clear and pleasant, like pearls falling on a jade plate. It really made a tinkling sound, making Li Xiao even wish she could shout a few more times. Amidst the crackling explosion, a lazy voice seemed to be heard, with a hint of contempt. Yan Shuijin, you are really courting death. You exploded your own life-defining magic weapon and entered the underworld. You dare to kill me without a magic weapon to protect you. Li Xiao suddenly felt her body getting hot, and she even had to arch her body awkwardly. The second voice is so charming. I have to say that some women do have extraordinary and special voices. As long as they open their mouths softly, they naturally have a special charm. Strictly speaking, the second sound is not as clear and pleasant as the first one, but it still sounds good. That voice was so soft and tender that it warmed people's hearts when it entered their ears. It immediately made Li Xiao's imagination run wild and his blood boil. I want to kill you, one sword is enough. The first voice shouted coldly, and in an instant, the tsunami-like pressure hit again. Then, there was another violent explosion, roar, and the whole earth shook. Li Xiao had to cover her ears tightly and open her mouth slightly to release the air pressure in her head to prevent her eardrums from being shattered. Then the two voices seemed to scold each other again, but because the sound of the explosion was too loud, it was completely covered up and it was impossible to hear what they said. An unknown amount of time had passed, but with the roar of an unprecedented explosion, Li Xiao even had the illusion that the entire world was exploding in an instant. Then, there was a sudden emptiness beneath my body and a strong sense of weightlessness came over me. Li Xiao couldn't tell whether he was blown up or a big hole appeared in the ground and he fell into it. At the moment when the feeling of weightlessness appeared, the forbidden skeleton soldiers on his back whistled, and some of them crawled in front of his body. Then, they held hands and entangled legs with each other, tightly entangled into a ball, and turned into a bone shield that covered his entire body. Directly in front of him was number 1. Its pure white skull was almost staring at him face to face. Li Xiao put his hands in front of his chest, his palms covering Yao Yao, who had shrunk into a small ball of light. Looking at the black skull of number 1, he couldn't help but feel moved. "Thank you for your hard work." He opened his mouth and said something instinctively, but he was not sure if he said it or not. The shock wave from the explosion seemed to have caused some damage to him. A hint of red light seemed to flash in the dark eye sockets of number 1. Li Xiao wanted to say something, but the feeling of weightlessness quickly turned into a violent collision. He watched helplessly as the 2 skeleton legs of number 1 hit a rock with a crack and shattered. Crash, vibration, and dizziness. When Li Xiao finally came back to his senses from the severe dizziness and discomfort, he saw the forbidden skeleton soldiers around him lying on the ground. Each of them was missing an arm or a leg. It was obvious that they were injured in the fall just now. But this was not a big problem. The bodies of the forbidden skeleton soldiers could be repaired at any time, as long as some magic power was consumed. He basically did not use his magic power, and it was always at full value. There was an endless bronze world all around. Both the stone ground and the grass had a bronze luster. They were very hard and strange. Li Xiao was about to stand up to repair the bodies of the loyal forbidden skeleton soldiers when a white figure suddenly fell from the sky and hit him directly on the head. Then, with a plop sound, his chest was pierced by a black sword that was broken into half. Li Xiao's eyes went dark and he fainted. Before falling into coma, I seemed to smell a faint scent that was different from the breath of the underworld, like orchid and musk. When encountering a fatal attack, activate the Crimson Sacrifice ability. The remaining lifespan is less than 1 year, and the Crimson Sacrifice cannot be used. Warning: the Crimson Origin is about to lose its suppression. Start the Infinite Suppression system and enable the Life Loan function. To offset this fatal injury, you need to sacrifice 20 years of life. I borrowed 20 years of life in advance, please return 30 years of life within 10 years. Do you want to borrow your life to offset this fatal injury? After falling into a coma, Li Xiao regained consciousness in the boundless red fog. However, looking at the text refreshed on the panel in front of him, Li Xiao just felt that it was outrageous. Outrageous to the extreme. The remaining lifespan is less than a year and there is no way to deduct it, but I can still borrow money. Can this thing be loaned out? And the interest rate is 50%. This is too much. Borrowing for 20 years means you have to pay back for 30 years. But he had no choice but to lend it. If he didn't, he would die. He didn't know what it would be like if he died, but he was sure that the result would definitely not be good. There was no other way, there was really no other way, this lifespan had to be borrowed or not. Li Xiao had no choice but to choose to borrow. The rolling red mist submerged his figure. Not knowing what happened, when the red mist gradually dissipated and he could see more clearly, Li Xiao looked up and was stunned. Before his eyes, a tall red temple suddenly appeared. Crimson Temple. This is not quite like it, it feels more like this. When he first traveled to this world and became a vegetable, Li Xiao would dream that he was walking in an endless red fog. There was a red temple far ahead, but he could only see it but could not reach it. Now, when he came back to consciousness after falling unconscious again, his consciousness came here again. Moreover, the red temple was no longer out of reach, but had actually appeared before him. Li Xiao raised his feet, as if influenced by an inexplicable force, and stepped onto the steps in front of the temple. There were 7 steps in total. When he stepped onto the first step, a faint blue light suddenly appeared before his eyes, and 3 rows of white words on a blue background appeared. Don't come near. Don't get close. Don't come near. Li Xiao just stepped on the first step. When he saw these 3 words, his figure suddenly froze. Ah, this prompt is very similar to the subtitles on the system panel, or in other words, the subtitles before being contaminated. Li Xiao vaguely remembered that when the system panel first appeared in front of him, it had white text on a blue background. Later, the 2 suns in the sky emitted a beam of light each at him, causing the so-called Crimson Origin to riot and pollute the system. Later, all the panels on the system had red text on a blue background. Why are there white words on a blue background again? Could it be that this system has not been completely polluted and is still silently resisting? Li Xiao raised his other foot and stood firmly on the first step, then asked, why can't I get closer? The Crimson Origin is too strong, you cannot control it, and your sanity will collapse. Who are you? Li Xiao asked the key question. I am Love. System Girl. Li Yan plus Li Shu second form. Li Xiao's mind was full of questions. Are you kidding me? Isn't love a concept? I am a combination of concepts called love, because only love can fight against you. Against me. Who am I? I also cannot understand who you are. You are an orderly intelligent consciousness formed under the concept of chaos and destruction. I cannot understand your existence, but I don't want to see your destruction. This. Am I just an ordinary office worker who just graduated from college and doesn't have a girlfriend yet? Why do I act like the final boss? This temple is calling me. I can sense that it is waiting for me to enter, but you stopped me. Should I believe you? Li Xiao pondered for a while and asked, at least until now, you haven't convinced me. The string of blue characters was silent for a moment, and then a new row of characters slowly appeared. If you go in now, you will devour Yao Yao uncontrollably. Li Xiao was startled. You can go in, but I hope you can control the power of the Crimson Origin before going in. Otherwise, you will be controlled by the Crimson Origin and become a ruthless destruction machine. How do I know when I can control the Crimson Origin? Li Xiao asked seriously. As you advance in the Taboo Overlord class, you will have the ability to control the Crimson Origin. This class is the evolutionary path that the two innate gods and I have built for you. It can absorb the power of the Crimson Origin and prevent you from losing control. This. Is it the Crimson Origin that polluted you, or are you the ones who polluted the Crimson Origin? Li Xiao couldn't help but ask. The infection is mutual. After the last string of characters appeared, a gentle force came over and pushed Li Xiao's consciousness back into his body. As if the world was entirely made of bronze, Li Xiao opened his eyes and suddenly felt a pain in his body. There was a sword stuck in his chest, a jet black sword. The bright red blood stained the jet black blade, which looked shocking. Mo Xiaojian. That's about it. Li Xiao was stunned. Is this the result of the fatal attack on him and the 20 years of his life he borrowed? It was resolved, but the sword was still stuck in his body. If I pull out this sword, will I have to borrow it for another 20 years? You know, in many cases, the secondary damage caused by pulling out a knife is more severe than stabbing it. Is this system really that dark? In addition to a blood-stained sword, there was also a white figure pressing on his head, making him feel suffocated. Apart from that, there was no other feeling. The sword stuck in my chest seemed to have merged with my body and there was no pain. What's that thing on your head? Click, click. Number 1, whose 2 legs were broken, struggled to crawl over using his 2 arms to drag his body, pushed the white thing away, and then looked at Li Xiao with his dark eyes. Li Xiao's hands were the most sore. It took him a while to regain consciousness and slowly move them away from his chest. In the palms of his hands, a ball of light swelled up in the wind, and soon transformed into Yao Yao's slender and graceful figure. Lord, are you okay? Yao Yao panicked and rushed to Li Xiao to see what was happening. However, her soul was destined to be unable to touch Li Xiao's entity, and tears even flowed for a moment. It's okay, it's okay. The sword on my chest looks scary, but it's actually okay. Li Xiao comforted her through the mental connection and then stretched out his hand. The forbidden magic surged out, and in the palm of his hand, it turned into a huge illusionary world, covering the surroundings. As the magic power was consumed bit by bit, the shattered bones of the forbidden skeletons quickly recovered. Summoning the forbidden skeletons only costs 10 mana points, and restoring them costs even less. Usually only a few mana points are enough. For example, Number 1 lost both legs, but he recovered by consuming 4 points of magic power. It seems that the consumption of magic power is based on the proportion of body damage. When all 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers recovered, they walked over carefully and lifted up Li Xiao, who was aching all over. Number 2 had already begun to gain intelligence, and his 2 bony arms massaged Li Xiao's shoulders, back, and chest. Li Xiao's blood and qi were relieved, and the pain in his body was greatly reduced, and he slowly regained control of his body. This time the fall was really severe. Li Xiao shook his head, caught a glimpse of white from the corner of his eye, then turned around and was stunned. Oh my god, a girl, a very beautiful girl. Just where Li Xiao had been lying just now, a graceful figure was lying there. She was a very beautiful woman, with a beautiful face and delicate features, and her black hair flowed down. She was wearing a white palace dress, her skin was as white as jade and crystal clear. She was truly a stunning beauty, as beautiful as an ice sculpture or jade. But at this moment, she was lying on the ground, breathless. One could see with the naked eye that the entire left side of her chest was completely sunken, as if it had been hit hard by something. The broken ribs pierced through the snow-white skin, revealing a shocking and terrible wound on the flawless body. There was also a horrible cut scar from her right abdomen to her right thigh, like an ugly red python. Under her torn dress, flesh, broken bones, and dirty blood were mixed together. Li Xiao's pupils shrank violently. 2 injuries would be absolutely fatal to any being. But when 2 wounds appeared on that beautiful figure, Li Xiao even felt a little heartbroken, as if his dream was shattered. Is she dead? Li Xiao opened his mouth with some difficulty and asked subconsciously. In fact, he didn't know who he was asking, maybe he was just asking himself. Unexpectedly, someone really answered him. A faint sigh fell from the sky. She's not dead yet, but she's only 1 breath away. She has lost her protective magic weapon, and her heart meridians are injured. Now she's only protected by the true energy from her years of practice. In this underworld without spiritual energy, I'm afraid she won't survive a night before she dies. Li Xiao subconsciously looked up, and the surrounding skeleton soldiers including Yao Yao also looked up, but they could not see any human figure. As far as the eye can see, there is a rugged forest all around, but all the mountains, trees, stones and even weeds are bronze in color, a completely cold metal world. Who are you? Li Xiao asked subconsciously. It's just a wandering ghost. The voice was a gentle and pure female voice, sounding a little old and hoarse. Who are you? You have flesh and blood, but you are not a corpse. You come from the underworld, but you can absorb death and transform it into life, and you can even control skeletons. I can't figure out your origins. Li Xiao's mind moved. Are you the one who is hostile to her? No, the voice is a little different. I'm not that one. That one is dying soon, but he has some background and can still hold on. Alas, young people nowadays are really short-sighted. Isn't it good to live a good life? Why do they have to fight to the death? Li Xiao looked at the seriously injured woman lying on the ground again, and after a moment of silence, he asked with some difficulty, Senior, is there any way to save her? Why do you want to save her? She is a 5th-rank land immortal. In your underworld, she is also an invincible Hades. If she dies, you can refine her into a war corpse, which will be a great help. The voice was very confused. Li Xiao was somewhat helpless. It's so hard to see a living person, I really don't want to see her die. Senior, do you have any solution? Are you attracted by her beauty and want to save her? The voice asked again. Yes. Li Xiao had nothing to be embarrassed about this and answered decisively. Sure enough, being born with a good appearance is a natural advantage. The voice seemed to be thinking about something. It's difficult to save her. She's been badly injured, even her heart is broken. No matter how strong she is, she's still a human. It's not easy to save her from such a fatal injury. Bronze Mountain God, I understand. If you are not pretty, this guy will not miss you. Since the senior said so, does that mean there is really a way? Li Xiao asked carefully. I do know how to save her, but why should I save her? The voice seemed to chuckle. Li Xiao frowned and asked seriously, Senior, what are your conditions? We can talk about it. Even if I have any conditions, you are just a 1st-level cultivator, and even if you are a little weird, how can you help me? I won't stay at the 1st level forever. Li Xiao said solemnly, if I can't do it now, please set a request. When my cultivation level improves, I will definitely do it. The voice was silent for a moment, then said quietly, to be honest, when you were unconscious just now, I used my divine sense to secretly check on you, but before I even got close to you, I felt extremely terrified, my soul trembled, and I couldn't control myself. Are you some ancient god or demon that has resurrected? Li Xiao was speechless and spread his hands. I don't know either. What is your secret? The voice asked again. Li Xiao thought for a moment, raised his hand and pointed at the 2 huge skulls floating in the sky of the underworld. They are both my wives, is this a secret? The voice was obviously stunned. After a moment, it seemed to be a little angry and said, stop talking nonsense. Look, I told you the truth, but you don't believe me, so I'll just make it up. Li Xiao sighed, his expression solemn, and said proudly. My true form is the innate blood evil that was formed by the endless vicious and bloody energy in this world. Because the killing calamity of heaven and earth is about to begin, I absorbed the luck of heaven and earth, and thus became a spirit and transformed into a human body. I was born into this world. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Everyone calls me, that. Li Xiao couldn't think of a cool name for a while, so he just made up a name. Everyone calls me the Crimson King. Do you know how great a blessing it is that you have received my promise today? Quote, quote. The air suddenly became strangely silent for a moment. Then, the voice responded softly. "Nu." Li Xiao's eyes were twitching. "I saved her today, you owe me a favor." After the voice finished speaking, the bronze ground suddenly changed, and several mechanical arm-like things stretched out with a puff-puff. A blade, tweezers, hemostatic forceps and other objects emerged from the top of the bronze mechanical arm and stretched to the woman's chest. Then, he carefully and precisely cut open her severely injured chest along the concave edge. Right in front of Li Xiao, a thoracotomy operation was performed with such precision that it could be written into a medical textbook. Li Xiao's eyes were throbbing, really throbbing. This scene was truly astonishing, with bronze mechanical arms flying back and forth, cutting wounds, cleaning broken bones, and removing rotten flesh. Then he combed the blood vessels, internal organs, and lungs, removed the broken heart, reattached the remaining part of the heart, and cleaned the broken flesh and bones in the lungs. The powerful vitality of the fifth-level practitioner was undoubtedly revealed at this moment. The broken blood vessels were slightly connected and stuck together tightly as if they had life. Li Xiao could even see that the flesh and blood seemed to have some kind of fixed memory. After the broken bones and impurities were cleared away, the cells in the body began to rapidly differentiate and proliferate, evolving into new flesh and blood tissues that automatically healed together. The heart was originally half destroyed, but after being connected to the surrounding arteries, it began to grow and recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few minutes, it had grown back into a complete heart. I don't know if fifth-level practitioners have abilities similar to rebirth by dripping blood, but the extremely vigorous vitality in this woman's body is truly amazing. In less than 20 minutes, the huge wound on the left chest was cleaned up. A surgical needle evolved from the tip of a mechanical arm, which sewed the surrounding skin and flesh together with a strand of black hair. How effective was this surgery? After the wound was sutured, the woman's left chest, which had been completely sunken, actually recovered to a size almost the same as the right side. I can only say that Li Xiao has really broadened his horizons. After the fatal chest wound healed, the wounds on the right abdomen and thigh were easier to deal with. The wounds looked horrible, but basically no bones were injured, just more bleeding. Several robotic arms transformed into various surgical instruments that flew up and down, skillfully removing dead flesh, cleaning wounds, and reconnecting blood vessels. There was even a small bronze bag that appeared under the wound to collect her dripping blood during the operation. When the wound was treated, it also transformed into a needle, sewed up the wound with her own long hair. The small bag turned into a needle again, pierced her artery, and injected the blood inside back into her body. It really saves resources. After doing all this, the woman, who was almost breathless, began to beat regularly. The repaired heart played its due function, and a strong vitality truly rose in her body. The fifth-level sword fairy is really strong. She is fine now. Her body is now in the process of self-healing. When she wakes up, she will basically not die. After doing all this, all the bronze mechanical arms retracted into the ground, and the place became extremely flat, making everything that just happened seem like an illusion, giving Li Xiao a strong sense of shock. Are you a piece of bronze that absorbed the death energy of the underworld and became a bronze fairy? Yao Yao, who was also floating beside Li Xiao and watching this scene, couldn't help but ask. The voice chuckled. Not only the bronze goblin, this kind of precise surgical operation doesn't seem like something that can appear in the underworld. Are you from another world? From a technological world? Li Xiao also asked. At the end of reincarnation, the underworld is the destination of all living beings. The voice sighed softly. I have forgotten where I came from. I don't even know what I am. Just think of me as the mountain god of this bronze mountain. Thank you, Senior Mountain God, for your help. Li Xiao said seriously. So, we are now inside the mountain of Senior. This sentence sounds a bit strange. Li Xiao felt a little numb on his scalp, so he had to ask, Senior wants me to. You'll know later. Okay, I'm tired. Let me take you away. The voice suddenly interrupted Li Xiao's words, and then, the bronze light flickered and turned into a layer of copper light shield, covering Li Xiao, Yao Yao, the skeleton soldiers and the woman in white lying on the ground. Immediately afterwards, the sky and the earth began to spin again, and there seemed to be countless lights and shadows constantly changing around. But this time there was no impact, no dizziness or discomfort, and the whole process was very smooth. When the copper light disappeared, the familiar scene of bones scattered all over the ground in the underworld appeared before our eyes. Li Xiao only felt his hand sink slightly, and when he looked down, he found that there was a bronze bracelet on his right wrist. Not at all, just bear with it. Of course, at this time, he once again saw the broken black sword stuck in his chest, and immediately exclaimed, "Oh shit. Master." Yao Yao looked at him in surprise. That mountain god is very good at surgery. I forgot to ask it to help me take down the sword. Li Xiao was stunned. The main reason was that the black broken sword did not cause any pain on his chest. After a long time, he got used to it, or became numb to it. As a result, he did not pay attention to it from beginning to end. Master, that woman seems to be waking up, Yao Yao said suddenly, pointing to the woman in white next to her. On that delicate and beautiful face, the long eyelashes moved slightly, as if they were about to open. Sniff sniff. The forbidden skeleton soldiers suddenly moved, formed an array to the west of Li Xiao's body, and raised their weapons together. Just as the woman slowly opened her eyes, in front of the forbidden skeleton soldiers, a skeleton cavalry unit of over 100 people formed a sharp arrow formation from a distance and rushed towards them. Li Xiao's expression became serious. He stretched out his hand, and the magic power in his palm condensed and turned into a dark golden forbidden magic knife. In fact, when the magic power reaches more than 1000 points, it can already leave the body freely and transform into various forms. It is completely fine to simply condense into the shape of a sword. However, that kind of magic sword needs to continuously consume magic power to maintain its shape, and the consumption rate is very fast, at least 20 points of magic power per minute. But with the forbidden magic knife, feet, it's like having some kind of invisible template. The magic power is filled along the template, and the condensed knife is a fixed entity, which requires about 100 points of magic power. This magic power will not dissipate after it is condensed, and can even be retracted into the body after the fight. For Li Xiao, it is completely lossless. It also has the same ability as the two shadow magic swords in the hands of number 2, causing a double blow to the entity and the soul at the same time, and is even stronger, with an additional effect of undermining the enemy's fighting will, which is equivalent to a mental attack effect. Therefore, for Li Xiao, it also enables him to have the ability of close combat. The skeleton cavalry were very fast and had a very clear goal, as if they were coming just for them. Li Xiao was a little nervous because there were too many skeleton cavalrymen. These were all real second-level warriors, fully equipped, wearing thick ancient armor, holding spears in their hands, and even the horses they rode were not just skeleton horses, they were also covered with bone armor. This is the regular army of the underworld. Skeleton trooper. I just can't stand the protagonist pretending to be cool. The skeleton knight that Yao Yao originally relied on as her strongest support did not have this group of elite cavalry, because its warhorse had no bone armor. It takes 20 forbidden skeleton soldiers working together to kill just one cavalryman, and now there are hundreds of them. That's a bit. Li Xiao subconsciously glanced at the panel and was immediately ecstatic. The cooldown of the skill, Forbidden Summoning, has expired. You can now summon a new batch of forbidden skeletons. The skill of Forbidden Summoning has a cooldown time and can only be released once every 20 hours. Li Xiao originally thought it was 24 hours, but apparently the time rules of the underworld seemed to be different from what he remembered before. Here, the standard time of a day is about 20 hours. Now, this skill has finally been refreshed. Needless to say, Li Xiao activated his magic power, and the heptagonal summoning array flashed with dark golden light. On the array, the 7 graceful beauty lines seemed to become more vivid. It takes 100 magic points to open the magic circle, 10 magic points for each forbidden skeleton soldier, and 20 are summoned, so a total of 300 magic points are consumed. This seemed to have reached a certain limit. Even if Li Xiao continued to output magic power, it was useless. The formation is like a full bottle. If you pour more magic power into it, it will just overflow and become completely unusable. The number of forbidden skeleton soldiers has not increased, and their quality has not become stronger. The initial 3-dimensional attributes of each forbidden skeleton soldier are the same, with 5 points in physique, strength and spirit, and 2 initial specialties, forbidden guard and combat instinct. However, with the addition of 20 new forbidden skeleton soldiers, the originally slightly thin formation finally became a little more solid. How should infantry fight against cavalry charges? Li Xiao suddenly remembered the low-end war games he had played before crossing over, and quickly issued an order in his mind. Don't form such a dense formation, spread out and fight. No matter how densely you pile up, you can't stop us. The 39 forbidden skeleton soldiers dispersed in a flash, and number 1, who was standing next to Li Xiao, moved closer to him, almost sticking to his body, and pulled the giant bone bow in his hand. At this moment, a low call came from behind Li Xiao. Mo Xiao. The sound was very weak, but clear and pleasant, like the tinkling sound of pearls falling on a jade plate. Li Xiao turned his head subconsciously, thinking that the woman was calling him. The next moment, his figure suddenly froze. The black broken sword that had been stuck in his chest seemed to be grown together with his body. He had almost no feeling for the broken sword, but at this moment it heard the call of the Lord and shook slightly. Then, it was pulled out from Li Xiao's chest with a puff sound, and as if it had its own consciousness, it brought out a sky full of blood, turned a corner in midair, and automatically flew back to the hands of the woman who had woken up. Deep red blood rushed out from his chest, making Li Xiao feel weak and stunned. The woman was also stunned. The black broken sword was originally broken by the shock, and rushed out from the body of the strange Hades, but it was accompanied by a bright red blood. The blood light actually condensed and did not dissipate, gathering on the broken sword blade, forming a red blade that filled the broken part. Yan Shuijin. Who saved me? What are you doing? Li Xiao couldn't help but yelled. What did you do to my Mo Xiao sword? The woman also shouted at almost the same time. Li Xiao was furious. If your eyes were fine, you should have seen the sword still stuck in my body, and you just pulled it out. Do you think I'm not dying fast enough? You. The woman was stunned again, and subconsciously asked, why is my sword on you? Yeah, why did you fall from the sky and hit me on the head, knocking me unconscious, and then stabbing me in the chest with the sword? Do I have any grudge against you? Li Xiao was furious. It's fine if you just pull out the sword, but what the hell do you mean by drawing my blood and clotting it on the sword? I didn't. I don't know blood magic. The woman was stunned for a moment, then seemed to react. You saved me. Did you trade your beauty for your intelligence? Isn't that obvious? Li Xiao was in a bad mood, really bad. The sword drew out some of his blood, condensed into a blade, and made him a little weak. However, the wound on his chest healed quickly. It seems that the life loan from the system is still reliable. It didn't make him die again and have to borrow again. At this moment, the team of skeleton cavalry finally rushed over. The giant bone bow in number 1's hand was pulled into a full moon shape, and then suddenly released. A bright white beam of light pierced through the void and hit the skeleton cavalryman in front. The bone arrow pierced through the void, and the huge impact force directly blew the skeleton cavalryman back. He was then knocked to the ground by his companions behind him, and then trampled by countless war horses. Number 5 took a sudden run, then jumped high, and stabbed with the nearly 3-meter-long cavalry bone spear in his hand, knocking a skeleton cavalryman off his horse. But its own body was also knocked high into the air by the impact of the warhorse. The figure of number 2 flickered, like a ghost floating into the cavalry formation. 2 slender shadow tang swords drew dense marks in the void, instantly passing over the legs of more than a dozen cavalrymen. More than a dozen cavalrymen fell off their horses at once, but the impact of the subsequent cavalry still caused number 2 to be knocked high into the air. This is all the effective damage caused by the forbidden skeleton soldiers. During the cavalry charge at full speed, the other forbidden skeleton soldiers were unable to cause any effective damage or obstruction. They were directly knocked away by the huge impact force and were completely helpless. Please move aside. Just when Li Xiao was considering whether he should give the order to disperse and run quickly, the pleasant sound of ding-dong came from behind. Li Xiao quickly picked up number 1 beside him and dodged to the side. No, 1. You think I'm ugly now, right? The next moment, the clear sound of swords resounded through the sky. Right behind Li Xiao, a black and red sword energy roared out like a dragon and instantly disappeared into the charging cavalry formation. Bang! There was a sudden silence between heaven and earth for a moment, and then all the skeleton cavalrymen exploded, disintegrated, and annihilated at the same time, as uniformly as an animation. Their bodies turned into a ball of thick white ash within 0.1 seconds, and then spread forward under their own inertia, covering Li Xiao's face and body. Cough, cough, cough. Li Xiao was stunned and choked. Then he covered his nose and started coughing violently. He was truly stunned by the power of that sword light. With that one powerful sword, more than 100 seemingly invincible skeleton cavalrymen were instantly turned into ashes. The contrast in power was truly too shocking. Number 1 considerately stretched out his skeleton hand and patted him gently on the back. Soon, there were coughing sounds coming from behind. Li Xiao spat out all the white ash in his mouth and nose. Turning around, he saw that the woman, who was originally pure and beautiful, now had her head and face covered with white ash and looked particularly embarrassed. Moreover, she was weak and seemed to be choked by the white ash even more. Soon, blood oozed from her chest and left thigh. Li Xiao hurriedly rushed over to help her up, and patted her carefully on the back. Did you throw that sword just now? It was too strong. No, don't cough so hard, the wound that has just been stitched is about to break. Take a deep breath, take a deep breath. Take your time, don't be anxious. Yao Yao, who was floating in the air, saw the Lord's distressed look, and she poked her lips slightly, hooked her fingers and activated her magic power. A small whirlwind blew past, sweeping a large amount of white ash around the two people away, clearing an area. Thank you. The woman choked and tears came out, and it took her a while to recover. Just after she said 2 words, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he fainted limply. The skull-shaped sun and moon hang in the sky, motionless forever. They are not like the sun and moon before Li Xiao traveled through time, which could rise in the east and set in the west. The sun and moon in the underworld do not move at all, and have always been like this, forever. When Li Xiao looked up, he could see that the 2 huge skulls each had a thin red light between their eyebrows. Apart from that, there were no other benefits. But generally speaking, those 2 innate gods were actually really nice to him. Especially when he was sitting on the edge of a flat stone, with the delicate fragrance of the girl lingering between his nostrils, and watching the shy undead witch dancing in front of him and obediently performing different movements according to his instructions, Li Xiao really felt what comfort was. The 39 forbidden skeleton soldiers were divided into small groups with the old leading the new, searching for wandering skeleton soldiers within a 5-kilometer radius and automatically killing monsters to level up. Number 1 stood loyally beside Li Xiao, always remembering that he was the Lord's number 1 personal bodyguard. Li Xiao watched Yao Yao dancing while playing with the bronze bracelet on his right wrist. This thing was given to him by the bronze mountain god he had never met, but he didn't know how to use it. He tried to input magic power into it, but there was no response. He didn't know what it was for. When the skeleton soldiers wandering around the 5 kilometers radius were basically cleared out and the forbidden skeleton soldiers began to return in groups, a cold voice suddenly sounded beside them. May I have your name? Hey, are you awake? Li Xiao turned around and saw the woman's bright eyes and the faint trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. She looked particularly sad and beautiful. She couldn't help but feel moved and her voice became much gentler. When did you wake up? When she started dancing. The woman lowered her eyes slightly. Taiyuan sect Yan Shuijin, thank you for your rescue. Taiyuan sect Master Yan Shui, thank you for saving my life. No problem, my name is Li Xiao. It's not that difficult actually. It's mainly because you have a strong physique, and you can survive such a serious injury. Li Xiao smiled, turned around, and motioned Yao Yao to continue dancing. You seem to be a human. Why are you in the underworld? The woman named Yan Shuijin asked softly. Li Xiao spread his hands and said, I don't know either. I just came in confused. I originally thought that only those who died could enter the underworld. Who knew that someone alive and well could come in? This was obviously a perfunctory remark. Yan Shuijin changed the subject and picked up the sword in her hand. The long sword now looked very strange. Half of the hilt was pure black, retaining its original color and texture, while the blade was bright red like blood. After the sword was pulled out of Li Xiao's body, part of his blood condensed into a sword blade, which seemed to have turned into some kind of entity, like a red gem, crystal clear. As time went by, strands of red spread towards the black part, seeming to be invading the sword. This Mo Xiao sword is my natal immortal sword that I have cultivated with my life. I wonder what magical power or secret method you used to turn it into this state. If possible, can you untie it? Yan Shuijin asked softly. Quote. Li Xiao looked at her speechlessly and helplessly. To be honest, I really don't know what's going on. When you first pulled out the sword, I thought you saw that the sword was broken, so you drew my blood to condense it. Is your sword made of some special material? How can it absorb blood? Yan Shuijin lowered her eyes again, as if she didn't dare to look at him, The Mo Xiao sword was forged by me with the deep sea Shen Yin and 9 heavens black iron. It doesn't have any weird blood-sucking materials. It is a real immortal item. Now it has become like this, I really don't know why. Is it the system's fault? Having said that, I borrowed 20 years of my life and used the ability of Crimson Sacrifice to resolve the sword's fatal flaw. I didn't intend to contaminate the sword. Oh no, it was modified, right? Let me see the sword. Li Xiao waved his hand. Yan Shuijin subconsciously shrank back. Taiyuan sect's sword practice emphasizes the unity of man and sword. As the saying goes, as long as the man and the sword are there, the man will die if the sword is broken. Yan Shuijin has practiced to the 5th level terrestrial immortal realm and has long been spiritually united with the immortal sword. How can he hand over his natal immortal sword to someone else casually? Unexpectedly, when she clenched her palm, the Mo Xiao sword in her hand shook violently, and it actually shook her hand away, then flew in front of Li Xiao and put the hilt of the sword into his hand. This scene stunned both of them. Li Xiao had never seen such a spiritual weapon before. Could it really fly back automatically? He saw clearly how the sword shook the original owner's hand away. Yan Shuijin's pale face was filled with panic and suspicion. This, her own immortal sword, which she had painstakingly cultivated for more than 1,000 years, had betrayed her like that. In a hurry, she suddenly shouted, "Come back." The Mo Xiao sword shook slightly, shook Li Xiao's hand away, and flew back into her hand. Mo Xiaojian, you two are my masters, right? You are so good, Mo Xiaojian. I didn't expect that this immortal sword with thick eyebrows and big eyes is also a fence-sitter. You just answer whoever calls you, right? Li Xiao wiped her hands on her tattered clothes with some embarrassment. I seem to have read some novels that mentioned some blood refining method. Your sword stabbed me once, so it couldn't have been refined by me for no reason, right? I have used my own heart blood to cultivate this sword for thousands of years. It has already been refined with blood. How can it be refined with blood by others? Yan Shuijin's tone was a little cold. Her natal sword had inexplicably turned into this, which made her feel angry and betrayed. Then I have no idea what happened. You fell from the sky and knocked me unconscious, and this sword stabbed me directly in the chest. If I wasn't so lucky, I would have died long ago. How would I know what this sword is? Li Xiao shook his head. Besides, if I were a cultivator who is not even at the 1st level, and I had the ability to refine an immortal sword, how could I be in such a miserable state? Yan Shuijin's temperament, which had just become cold, suddenly collapsed. In fact, she didn't quite understand what was going on, but she still remembered the battle with the sect traitor, in which the traitor used the samsara disc to shatter her heart meridians and then cut her with a knife. With this injury, she was doomed to die. But this inexplicable man saved him, and when he just woke up, the Mo Xiao sword was indeed stuck in his chest. This made her very ashamed. She was seriously injured, fell from the sky, and stabbed him with a sword. In the end, this man survived by luck, and saved her without holding a grudge. If she was cold and indifferent to such a favor, would she still be a human being? Sir, I will never forget your kindness, Yan Shuijin, she replied in a low voice. Li Xiao was immediately happy, touched his chin and said, I heard that if a woman's life is saved by someone and she sees that the man is good-looking, she will say that she has no way to repay the man's life-saving grace and will only repay him with her body. If the man is ugly, she will just say something perfunctory like she will repay him later. It seems that I am really not a handsome guy. Yan Shuijin was stunned for a moment, then smiled, and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Unexpectedly, the laughter aroused her injuries, and she felt a pain in her chest, and her face turned pale, and she started to cough. Oh my God, it was just a joke, don't get excited. Li Xiao was startled and hurriedly walked up to her and patted her back gently to help her calm down. This time, Yan Shuijin coughed for a long time, coughing up a trace of blood before she could breathe smoothly. Feeling the man's palm patting her back, her face turned red and she lowered her eyes. Sir, please respect yourself. Have branches. I am helping you because I see you are in pain. Don't be ungrateful. Do you have no self-respect just because I pat you on the back to make you feel better? Li Xiao has a bad temper and won't tolerate the slander from the little fairy. If I didn't respect myself, I would have been pregnant with twins during the time you were unconscious. And you still accuse me of not respecting myself. Li Xiao was really furious. Yan Shuijin covered her face with her slender white hands, then extended her index finger with her other hand and pointed at his leg. Li Xiao looked down. Good job. By the way, since traveling to this world, Li Xiao actually only has one set of clothes on her, which is that set of coral fleece pajamas. It was unknown how long he remained a vegetable, but by the time he regained his freedom of movement, his coral fleece pajamas were almost rotten. What followed was a series of fights and walks, during which he was thrown down hard many times. His clothes were already tattered, and it was no exaggeration to describe him as being in rags. It was actually okay when I stood up, I could still block it. Now when I squat down, the holes in my pajamas can't be covered at all. I squatted next to the girl and patted her back to relieve her breath. People could see it with just a glance. It's no wonder people call him self-respecting. Li Xiao turned around in a somewhat embarrassed manner, and his face turned red. Speaking of which, Miss Yan. Oh, that's not right. Yan, Fairy Yan, aren't you a land fairy? You should have some storage tools or something like that on you, right? Do you have any extra clothes? Yan Shuijin was silent for a moment, then responded softly, in order to enter the underworld, many of the magic weapons I brought with me were destroyed. Only the Mo Xiao sword remained. Gulu. Li Xiao suddenly thought of a bad consequence, and his face froze. In other words, you don't have any supplies. Not even the most basic food and water. By the way, have the immortals on Earth reached the level of fasting? Can they survive without eating? Yan Shuijin's face suddenly turned pale, and her pretty face, which looked particularly pale due to blood loss after the injury, was almost bloodless. If the immortals on land can have sufficient spiritual energy from heaven and earth to replenish, they will not have any problem not eating or drinking for a few years. But this is the underworld, there is only dead air, no spiritual energy. What do you usually eat? I have a special physique. I can survive without eating. I can transform this dead energy into vitality. Li Xiao responded instinctively and was stunned. After a moment, he seemed to have thought of something, sighed, thought about it, then moved closer to her and stretched out his arm. Yan Shuijin looked at him with confusion on her face. Your stomach is growling with hunger. You have been seriously injured and cannot absorb the energy of heaven and earth to recover. If you don't eat something, you will probably become a land immortal who starves to death. What do you want me to eat? Before she could utter the word, Yan Shuijin was completely stunned. Li Xiao placed his left arm across her face, then held the forbidden magic knife in his right hand and cut at her wrist with gritted teeth. The flesh was cut open, and bright red blood immediately gushed out from the cut blood vessels. Seeing Yan Shuijin still standing there in a daze, Li Xiao quickly put the wound close to her mouth and scolded. Don't be in a daze. Don't waste your time. Yan Shuijin panicked and subconsciously opened her mouth. Warm blood rushed into her mouth, carrying a faint fishy smell, flowing down her throat into her stomach, and immediately transformed into a thick vitality that filled her limbs and bones. This vital energy was so thick, like a compressed biscuit that had been condensed to the extreme. It sank into her body and immediately gave her a sense of fullness. Military compressed biscuits. None of my business, I'm just a metaphor. Her body was severely injured, her heart meridian was broken, her essence was exhausted to the limit, and she was almost exhausted. Later, when the skeleton cavalry attacked, she used her sword desperately, and even her true essence was about to dry up. At this moment, nourished by this vitality, all the limbs and bones seemed to be like thirsty land longing for rain. The sword essence that was about to dry up was quickly invigorated, and the whole body seemed to begin to recover comprehensively. She was a 5th-rank land immortal who cultivated her swordsmanship while also cultivating her physique. Her offensive power was unparalleled. Her physical foundation was strong enough, but it was damaged. Now with this nourishment, the Sword Dao Immortal's powerful vitality was immediately activated, and he was truly freed from the near-death state. 1 bite, 2 bites, 3 bites. After drinking 5 mouthfuls of rich blood, Yan Shuijin came back to her senses, controlled her thirsty body's desire for vitality, and stretched out her tongue to try to block the broken blood vessels in her wrist. The wound was blocked, and the strong recovery ability of the forbidden demon body itself also played a role, and the wound was healed quickly. Li Xiao's physical fitness also reached 8 points, and his recovery ability was much stronger than that of ordinary people. Li Xiao withdrew his arm and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw a blush finally appear on Yan Shuijin's pale face, and waves of huge and vigorous vitality began to slowly revive. Fortunately, Such a beautiful woman didn't starve to death. Yan Shuijin had a strange expression. She seemed a little confused, a little puzzled, and caught up in some very incomprehensible phenomenon. Her beautiful face looked very cute at this moment. How is it? Have you recovered a little? Li Xiao asked. Yan Shuijin nodded and pursed her lips. Some of the bright red blood was still stained on her pale pink lips, exuding a different kind of beauty. In the future, don't treat other people like this. After a while, Yan Shuijin pursed her lips, lowered her eyes, and said softly. I'm not being masochistic, I'm just worried that you'll starve to death. Do I have to drink the blood of every person I see? Li Xiao rolled his eyes. What I mean is that you probably don't know. Your blood contains a lot of power. It can be called the most excellent innate precious medicine. Yan Shuijin's voice was very gentle, coupled with her extremely pleasant voice, it was like a string of fine pearls knocking on my heart. Some practitioners have no scruples. If they knew, they would probably try every possible means to capture you, cut your flesh and bleed you, or even refine your human elixir. Oh, a Mai Tang monk. Li Xiao laughed. If you eat a piece of my meat, you can live forever, right? Yan Shuijin thought about it seriously and said softly, I don't know who that sugar monk is, but you must never show your blood to others. It will bring you endless troubles. Don't worry. Li Xiao sighed. How many people in this world can be as beautiful as you, and happen to be trapped in the underworld, with no food to eat and about to starve to death, and yet you just happen to be around me and let me meet you? There aren't so many prerequisites. I'm not ill. I can't just bleed myself all the time. Quote. Yan Shuijin lowered her eyes, and after a moment, she placed the Mo Xiao sword across her knees, crossed her legs, and activated the sword energy in her body to recover from her injuries. No matter how many ideas she has, she must first try her best to restore her strength so that she can speak with confidence. The forbidden skeleton soldiers gathered together, which meant that all the skeleton soldiers wandering around within 5 kilometers had been cleared out. In this round of training, Li Xiao completely released his authority and let number 2, who had developed basic intelligence, lead the team, kill enemies and level up independently. And the effect is excellent. After this training, the 3-dimensional attributes of the second wave of forbidden skeleton soldiers were close to 10 points. The 3-dimensional basic attributes of the first wave were close to 17 points. As the leader number 2, his strength and physique have reached 19 points, and his spirit has reached 20 points, which is the full point of the first level. As a result, number 1, who has always been a personal bodyguard, has not grown much, and the values of his 3 basic attributes are all around 15 points. Yao Yao's 3 skeleton swordsmen were shattered when they fell into the Copper Mountain, but because they were shattered and not killed in battle, their undead aura was not consumed, so they could be summoned again by consuming magic power. After this training, the basic attributes have also been improved. They have reached about 18 points. At this moment, the difference between the forbidden skeleton soldiers and ordinary skeleton soldiers can be seen. When the 3-dimensional properties are exactly the same, a forbidden skeleton soldier can easily pin 3 skeleton swordsmen to the ground and leave them powerless to resist. It can only be said that the actual combat effectiveness of the forbidden skeleton soldiers cannot be measured by paper data. Do you want to learn swordsmanship? After circulating her true energy for a full cycle, Yan Shuijin looked noticeably better. When she opened her eyes, she saw Li Xiao holding the forbidden magic knife in her hand, practicing her close combat skills with No. 2. She asked softly. Li Xiao thought for a moment and asked, in your Taiyuan sect, can a master and a disciple fall in love? There is actually no rule in Taiyuan sect that a master cannot have a romantic relationship with his disciple. For those who practice Taoism, to some extent, the master-disciple relationship is more important than the parent-child relationship. Because unless the parents also embark on the immortal path, they can only live for a few decades. But the immortal master and apprentice can accompany each other for at least hundreds of years. Therefore, within the Taoist sects, the master-disciple relationship is the most important and basic moral standard. The 4 words, respecting teachers and honoring virtues, can be said to be the benchmark for maintaining all moral standards. The so-called master is the master, and the master is also the father. This description is not the slightest exaggeration. Regardless of whether it is the right way or the wrong way, you must respect your master. Once you betray your master, you will be despised by the world and despised wherever you go. Therefore, things like love between a master and his apprentice, there is no explicit rule that prohibits it, but in a broad sense it will still be despised by people. Of course, people have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and this kind of thing is not uncommon in the world of immortal cultivation. If it really happens, it is usually done secretly, and it is best not to be known by others. Yan Shuijin was a truly kind-hearted person. As soon as she heard Li Xiao's words, she understood what he meant and felt angry and amused at the same time. Of course, the scene of cutting open the wrist to draw blood really made her fall into some kind of unspeakable throbbing, so that she was at a loss for a moment. She didn't dare to look at his eyes that were so hot that they seemed to be burning. In the past, she had also seen this kind of admiration in the eyes of other men in the sect, but they all suppressed it very well. This guy was different, his aggression was so strong, it was like a flame surging out, burning her everywhere, making her feel like she was about to be set on fire. She has always been devoted to Taoism, and her heart is as calm as water. Because she bears the blood feud of her master, the ultimate goal of her practice is to come to the underworld to clean up the sect and end the 10,000 years of blood feud of Taiyuan sect. Now, the enemy's soul was slain by her, and she finally fulfilled her long-cherished wish. She herself also fell into the underworld, and the sky-splitting shuttle that she had cultivated for thousands of years also exploded. I'm afraid there is no chance for her to go back. I thought I would die, but unexpectedly I was resurrected here and met such a strange person. She couldn't see through him at all, but at this moment, she was relying on him to survive. In fact, for her, after fulfilling her long-cherished wish, it doesn't matter whether she is alive or dead. But at this moment, she clearly felt that, being alive was actually pretty good. What does it feel like to be loved? She had never felt this before, but now she truly felt a throbbing and warmth coming from the depths of her soul. They are just some external sword techniques. There is no need to become a disciple. She lowered her eyes and spoke softly. That's good. Li Xiao was immediately happy. Actually, I've never practiced martial arts before. I just knew how to chop around with a knife. But have you recovered now? Are you ready to teach me? Do you want to take a rest? You come closer. There was a blush on Yan Shuijin's pale face. She was truly beautiful and extraordinary. Li Xiao suddenly leaned over and almost put his face against hers, less than 3 centimeters away from her face. At this distance, it would be unreasonable not to kiss her. Yan Shuijin suddenly felt a little flustered. She didn't know where to look and simply closed her eyes. There is a warm touch on the lips, soft and delicate. As expected, he kissed me. The unprecedented feeling made Yan Shuijin move slightly. She couldn't help but point a finger at his brow and push him away from her lips. Pure sword essence, along with a rich stream of information, poured into Li Xiao's mind. He was slightly startled, and a line of words appeared on the panel. Obtained magical power. Taiyuan Samsara Blade Golden Divine Product. Use forbidden magic to use magical skills to gain proficiency. When proficiency reaches the maximum level, the grade of the magical skill can be upgraded. The current proficiency is 0%. Oh my god, a golden divine attack skill. Li Xiao was shocked, and even when Yan Shuijin's finger slowly pushed away from her lips, she didn't recover. The highest grade he had seen was the Silver King grade. For example, the Golden Blade after the evolution of number 2, and Yan Shuijin herself, were both 5th grade king grades. This was the first 6th rank divine item he had seen, and it was a magical skill. Was this the foundation of the Taiyuan sect? This set of swordsmanship is amazing. Li Xiao couldn't help but exclaim. Yan Shuijin put her slender white fingers on his forehead, then turned her face slightly away, not daring to look at him at all, and said softly. This is an ordinary sword technique practiced by our Taiyuan sect's outer disciples. It is not an important magical skill. Therefore, you don't need to become my disciple. Li Xiao was stunned again. Ordinary swordsmanship practiced by Taiyuan sect's outer disciples. Divine quality. Taiyuan sect is already strong enough to allow outer disciples to practice divine quality martial arts at will. He glanced at Yan Shuijin, and seeing her slightly flushed face, he suddenly understood. It's easy to tell that this kind of divine martial arts is definitely the most core secret technique of a sect. She said this just because she didn't want to add any psychological burden to him. Li Xiao's heart suddenly heated up, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "Then I won't become your disciple." Li Xiao couldn't control himself at all, with his brow still against her finger, so he used a little force, pushed hard against her slender white jade finger, quickly moved in front of her, and kissed her pale and slightly red face again. The blush on her slightly red cheeks suddenly became even redder. Yan Shuijin really couldn't stand this guy's advances anymore. She had to use a little force with her fingers and press against his brow again to push him away. He whispered, "That's enough. How can you take advantage of others and never get enough? Yan Shuijin, how many times do you want to kiss me?" Ah, this. Li Xiao's face turned red, but he actually smiled. She was not angry. He kissed her twice in a row, but this beautiful fairy didn't seem to be really angry. No matter what, his blood was not shed in vain. Yao Yao pouted fiercely, and the corners of the little witch's pouting mouth looked like they could hang 2 soy sauce bottles on them. Li Xiao was in a good mood and didn't care about the little witch's temper. Instead, he carefully studied the magical powers of the Taiyuan Samsara sword. A complete magical power actually includes 3 aspects: fixed pattern sword techniques, the skill of using strength to activate the sword techniques, and the martial arts realm of using the sword techniques. The profession of Taboo Overlord was originally a professional evolution system formed by the fusion of Nether Warrior and Necromancer. It possessed the dual characteristics of warrior and mage, and was therefore extremely inclusive. Not only can forbidden magic be used as magic power, it also possesses the true chi attributes of a warrior, so there is no problem in activating martial arts. This satisfies the second condition. As for the first condition, there is no secret at all under the powerful panel system analysis. This set of swordsmanship has a total of 6 finishing moves. In the panel analysis, the first move seems to be the simplest, just a slash of the sword, but in fact it can be broken down into 360 basic movements. When one reaches the state of great perfection, the blade can release 360 different forces with one strike, and the cutting force is unparalleled in the world. Even without the infusion of true chi, it can cut gold and jade. If it is infused with true energy or magic power, the power that is unleashed will naturally be extremely strong and indestructible. Therefore, this move is also called 100 Ripping Edges. With the help of the panel, it was much easier for Li Xiao to practice this set of magical powers. At least in terms of the swordsmanship, there would be no mistakes. There are 360 basic movements, just do them one by one. First make the movements meet the standards, then try to integrate them, practice more, get used to the connection between the moves, and you will gradually succeed in your practice. As Li Xiao swung his wrist, the slender forbidden magic knife flashed in the air. Yan Shuijin took a glance and her expression changed. How come this guy has such a good understanding of martial arts? She had never seen any true disciple of the Taiyuan sect who, after practicing the 100 blades, for the first time, could decompose all the exquisite moves of this move into such detailed and perfect basic moves. The blood contained in Li Xiao's forbidden demonic body is definitely effective enough. Yan Shuijin drank 5 mouthfuls of forbidden blood and circulated her true energy to perform 7 major cycles. It took less than half a day in total, and her physical condition had been greatly improved. At least she could stand up and walk. The wounds in her body have all healed, but the new flesh and blood is still relatively fragile. It cannot compare to her original well-tempered body of a land immortal, and needs to be nurtured slowly. Of course, the depleted essence in the body will recover even slower. The lack of spiritual energy in the underworld is a big problem. The only way to replenish spiritual energy is to drink the forbidden blood. The vitality contained in the bloody night was extremely condensed and needed to be slowly digested. However, no matter how much she stared at it, it was still not enough compared to her powerful strength. Yan Shuijin couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that she would have to stay in the underworld for a long time. Slowly standing up from the ground, Yan Shuijin looked down and saw the torn areas of her dress on her chest and thighs. There was no way. She was seriously injured and had to undergo a major operation, so her clothes were naturally torn. She didn't know how much of her body that guy had seen. Never mind, I really can't worry about that now. Some of his true energy was restored in his body, so as a sword-wielding immortal, he would certainly not let himself fall into such an embarrassing situation where he was naked. She slightly snapped her fingers, and a ray of pure golden light burst out from her fingertips, absorbing the endless platinum energy from the surrounding heaven and earth, and quickly formed a white armor on her body surface, wrapping her entire body. This kind of armor formed by platinum power is one of the most basic 5-element spells. It has little defensive power and is mainly used to cover the body. Mo Xiaojian. Don't just look at Yan Shuijin, look at me instead. Of course, the statement, not much defensive power, is made from the perspective and standards of a sword-fighting immortal. Li Xiao had just practiced the basic moves of Bai Lai Feng twice. When he saw Yan Shuijin suddenly wearing a white helmet and armor, his eyes lit up immediately. He came up and whispered, "Have you recovered some of your cultivation?" "Well, I've recovered a little bit." Her voice sounded a little muffled through the helmet. "How often do you need to drink my blood to sustain your daily consumption?" Li Xiao asked. Yan Shuijin was stunned for a moment. "What do you mean? Aren't you unable to replenish the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? My blood can help you replenish the spiritual energy, which means maintaining your daily consumption and allowing you to recover slowly. How often should you drink it? I have to calculate whether I can hold on." Yan Shuijin was silent for a long time before she asked softly, "Are you going to keep bleeding me to drink and keep me alive? It would be great if there were other ways, but I'm not familiar with the underworld. I don't know if there are other ways to restore your strength. If there are, let's find them." Li Xiao is very serious. Yan Shuijin was silent for a moment before she said softly, "Just like before, once every 3 months will do." "Huh, my blood is so effective." Li Xiao was immediately happy when he heard it. "Then you can drink more. I remember that the human body can donate up to 400 milliliters of blood at a time. I'm afraid you didn't even drink 100 milliliters. How long is the interval between blood donations?" Li Xiao frowned and thought for a moment, and really forgot about it. "It seems to be 3 or 4 months, 400 milliliters. That means about 100 milliliters a month. You can drink it once a month in the future. Drink more and you will recover faster." Yan Shuijin fell into an unspeakable silence again. She couldn't understand anything like milliliters. But at this moment, seeing this guy talking about this topic very seriously, she felt her nose sore and tears almost fell. After several minutes, she asked softly, "Do you really like me?" "Ah, is it so obvious?" Li Xiao blushed, feeling a little embarrassed. "When I was on the verge of death, it was the best time to refine me into a puppet corpse. Why didn't you refine my body, but instead went through so much trouble to save me?" With the helmet package, there seemed to be an inexplicable existence, allowing Yan Shuijin to ask the questions that she had always wanted to ask in her heart. Li Xiao looked confused and spread his hands. "I don't know how to do it." "What if you can do it?" Yan Shuijin couldn't help but ask. "Well, let's see if we can save you. It's so hard to find a living person in such a place." Li Xiao was somewhat helpless. "If we can save him, we will try our best to save him. If you take me with you, there will be a lot of trouble." Yan Shuijin sighed and said quietly, "My purpose in coming to the underworld was to kill a mortal enemy. In that battle, I shattered her soul and destroyed her body. Of course, I was also severely injured by her counterattack before her death. She is not completely dead. After practicing in the underworld for these years, she seems to have mastered some soul-splitting techniques. I can sense that her soul fragments still exist and will drive the monsters of the underworld to seek revenge on me. The cavalry team I encountered a few days ago was like this, and there will be more in the future." "Isn't that perfect?" Li Xiao's eyes lit up. "You see, if my babies want to evolve, they have to kill enemies. If your great enemy drives the skeleton guards to come, isn't that just giving away experience?" "Your babies." Yan Shuijin's focus seemed a little strange. "Yes, they are all my babies." Li Xiao pointed at the forbidden skeleton soldiers around him and said proudly. "Don't look at them as just skeletons now. They don't look very pretty. After they evolve, they will all be top beauties in the future. They are just a little bit worse than you." Yan Shuijin glanced at the white forbidden skeleton soldiers, then looked at Li Xiao, and especially looked at Yao Yao who was floating beside him. He sighed faintly. "It seems that you have been alone in the underworld for a long time, and you have been lonely for a long time. Now, even a skeleton can be imagined as a beauty. I'd better watch you to prevent you from going astray." It was understandable to say that the undead witch Yao Yao was a treasure. Although she couldn't be touched, at least she could be seen. But those skeleton soldiers, Yan Shuijin really couldn't understand. She felt that she really couldn't let this guy continue like this. Li Xiao was struck by lightning. He felt that this sword fairy seemed to treat him as a mentally ill psychopath. But her last words, "I'd better follow you," made Li Xiao happy again. Forget it, forget it. Now he has already said hello, whether she believes it or not is her business. When the forbidden skeleton soldiers turn into stunning beauties in the future, just don't be jealous. Wife, how did you get this set of armor? Can you make one for me too? My clothes are so tattered, so ugly. Li Xiao asked with a smile. Yan Shuijin had never seen such a shameless person and was stunned for a moment. Why do you call me wife so naturally? I just promised to follow you, but I haven't. I haven't promised to marry you. Are you trying to repay a favor? At this moment, Yan Shuijin didn't know whether she felt angry or amused, but her focus was a little off again. She pointed at Li Xiao's left wrist. Don't you have a protective device? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.